We depend on the support of Alabamians like you. Memberships start out as little as $5 a month, and you'll get access to exclusive content only offered to our members. You'll be supporting independent journalism done by people who cherish Alabama values. Become a member today by visiting 1819news.com and clicking Become a Member. That's 1819news.com and click Become a Member today.
The baseball coach for Enterprise High School has been charged with driving while under the influence of alcohol. Marty Lovrich was arrested by state troopers in Coffee County over the weekend. The principal of Enterprise High has told WDHN News that he is aware of the situation. Lovrich started coaching the baseball team back in 2023. The president and CEO of the Tennessee Valley Authority, Jeff Lash, is planning to retire after 6 years leading the TVA. Lash will stay in place until the board of directors is able to select a successor. Lash first came into the news here in Alabama after Donald Trump criticized him during his first presidential administration. Trump criticized Lash for receiving a $10 million a year salary. The TVA provides energy for 10 million people across 7 states in the Southeast. I'm Andrea Tice.
For more news affecting Alabamians, go to 1819news.com. And while you're there, subscribe to the daily newsletter.
It's Johnny from Sinclair's on Bond Road. We've been in business almost 30 years.
Sinclair's East, Juanette Taylor.
I think if you hadn't tried us, you should give us a try. We've got a great menu, offered anything from chicken fingers, wings, salads, fajitas. At lunchtime, we do great country lunch with different vegetables and different meats every day.
Sinclair's, where you get great sandwiches and our daily meat at 3 special at lunch, to great pasta, chicken, steaks, and seafood for dinner.
Our most popular items are, we got a soup called she crab soup, which is extremely popular. We've got a bunch of pasta dishes, which people love. Mediterranean chicken is my favorite.
Sinclair's.
We do live music, light stuff on Wednesdays and Thursdays, and then on Fridays and Saturdays, maybe 3-piece bands or 4-piece bands.
Come see why Sinclair's has seen lesser restaurants come and go over the years. Johnny Sullivan Sinclair's, at the corner of Vaughn and Taylor. Find them on Facebook at Sinclair's East. Google search Sinclair's Restaurant. Sinclair's.
Are you happy with your IT support company? Do they resolve your company's computer issues quickly, or do they leave you down and frustrated? You need your computers working and problems resolved quickly and permanently. GTI is different. GTI has a high standard of affordably supporting and protecting businesses like yours since 1999. Call them now at 819-4650, 819-4650, or visit gtinow.com.
The views and opinions of the following program are solely those of the host and other contributors. These do not necessarily represent those of Liberty Acquisitions 825, Blue Water Broadcasting, its management, staff, or any advertisers. It's time for Montgomery's conversational radio show. It's news and views on News Talk 93.1 FM. To join the conversation, call 272-9228.
This is how you conduct yourself in a democracy?
Joey Clark.
Welcome to the program. Here on a lovely Tuesday. So much to get to. Again, Luis Elizonda, Lou, will be joining us, the UAP expert, from 1 to 3 our time. Looking forward to that. As well as just trying to keep on top of all the news. It's like drinking out of a fire hose these days. But joining us now, keeping the tradition going, we have the one, the only Judge Andrew Napolitano. Judge, how you doing today, sir?
I'm well, Joey. How are you, my friend?
I'm in very good spirits, and I want to begin today by kind of tipping my hat to the host that does a show here on these airwaves before me, Scott Beeson. He got into this whole thing. He was a state senator for a while here in Alabama, and he realized, talking to a lot of the lawyers in the, say, state legislature here, that even the ones that studied constitutional law barely read the Constitution in their days at university. Is that actually true, that a lot of these folks who are constitutional scholars really can't tell you that much about the Federalist Papers or the Constitution itself half the time?
Well, I'm sorry to tell you that it is sadly true. In nearly every law school in the country, the course on constitutional law is required. It's required because it's on every bar exam. It's required because it forms the basis for the relationship between the states and the federal government and individuals and the government. but rarely do professors require students to read the Constitution. Now, I taught constitutional law for 18 years. In the first few years, they said, all right, read the Constitution, and then we'll start with these cases. They never read it. So I began the con law class for the 2nd through the 18th year by putting the Constitution up on a screen and going through every word with them and explaining what each word and phrase and clause means and how it's been interpreted by the court. That takes 2 or 3 days. Then we got into the business of reading the standard 140 or 150 Supreme Court opinions interpreting it. But your colleague is quite correct. Sadly, you'd be hard-pressed to find lawyers, judges, even legal scholars that have read it from beginning to the end.
Well, it seems
Catholic priests have read the New Testament from the beginning to the end. People tend to read, and I'm not picking on Catholic priests in general, people tend to read, the commentaries rather than the original work.
Right, and I love the folks who are like, why do we need the Old Testament? I'm like, well, if Jesus is the fulfillment of the law and the prophets, you might want to know what that means.
Correct.
And it is, I think, absurd that as much as people appeal to, as you and I might both appeal to the written word in the Constitution, it seems like this country it's almost like the English Constitution, which is not written down. It's sort of the will of Parliament and the common law developed through that legislature. I bring all this up.
I think I may have told you this. I once said to someone who was about to be inaugurated to the presidency, you know, in a few weeks, you're going to swear to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. Have you read it? And he said to me, I don't read books. And I said, well, it's not a book, depending upon the size of the pages and the size of the print. It's maybe 15, 16, 17, 18 pages long. I got guys like you to tell me what's in there. That, unfortunately, is a common view of the Constitution, even among lawyers and judges.
And, that guy sounds like he's maybe a billionaire CEO type. Yeah, just give it to me in a few short sentences. That's enough for my understanding. I bring all this up, though, because I'm seeing a lot of Democrats in particular, after this exposure of USAID, start yelling about a constitutional crisis. And it's, from my conversations with you, with reading what you've written, also reading far and wide, seems like we've been in a constitutional crisis for a long time. Let's just say with the Fourth Amendment since what, 1947 with the National Security Act?
We're in a constitutional crisis when one branch is assuming the powers of another, or when one branch is not doing what it is supposed to do. So it's a constitutional crisis if Congress authorizes money to be spent and the president doesn't spend it. Now, because President Nixon did this with abandon, Congress enacted legislation over his veto, which says if you don't want to spend the money, isolate it, tell us why, propose alternate legislation, and we'll vote on it. If you don't do this in 45 days, you have to spend it. And if we don't accept your alternate legislation, you have to spend it. Why? Because under the Constitution, the power of the purse belongs to the Congress. Now, there are times when the president is told he can spend it at his discretion. And one of those times is this USAID. And Donald Trump's predecessors, and even Donald Trump himself in his first term, I am sure personally unaware of this, delegated the presidential discretion to bureaucrats who spent it in absurd, even disgusting ways that we are now finding out about. Can he refuse to spend that money? Yes, that's a different category of money. That's not like Congress saying, spend $5 billion to buy this piece of equipment. That's Congress saying, here's $250 million, spend it however you see fit. So he has a lot more discretion because the way he sees fit is to not to spend it at all. So there are different areas of constitutional crises depending upon the level of discretion that Congress gave to presidents.
Well, and I find the whole DOGE thing going on with Elon fascinating, especially because Elon and Vivek Ramaswamy had a very public, transparent conversation, I think, just 2 days ago. And it sounded like, just reading between the lines of their conversation, the DOGE team figured out where's the line that we can go up to. What can we do based on the statute and based on executive, say, discretion to actually cut things off, certain contracts, control certain departments, as well as things like this buyout of federal workers. I think 20,000 so far have taken them up on the 8-month severance. Elon said we can't go past 8 months because Congress would need to authorize that. So it seems like they're going up to the line, and in some cases, it seems like they're going across the line to pick a fight on purpose.
I'm sorry, I'm going to have to go in a minute. They have no authority whatsoever, and they're not authorized by the Congress, and none of them is confirmed by the Senate. They're not even receiving salaries, not that they need the money. But the president can seek the advice of whomever he wants, you, me, whoever. And then the president accepts that advice. So independent of the president, they are toothless. But having a president who accepts their advice makes them very strong. I must run, Joey.
Okay.
There's other commitments here. Thank you so much for having me.
Appreciate it, Judge. Again, folks, that's Judge.
All the best.
Thank you, sir. Judge Andrew Napolitano, always appreciate his time. Wasn't able to get to the whole El Salvador thing. I don't know if y'all saw that. Eddie Bader here in the studio with me. How you doing today?
Pretty good. How you doing, bud?
I'm all right. Bud. How you doing, buddy?
How you doing, bud?
Oh, but did you see that agreement with El Salvador?
I didn't. I saw the prefaces of it, but I didn't know anybody agreed to it.
So it's Bekele down there. He's the guy who essentially made El Salvador one of the safest places on earth.
Yes.
Because he locked up something like 80,000 violent gang members who had been tearing the country apart for decades.
Yeah, they literally went from 6-digit murder numbers to, I think, 2-digit murder numbers in the past 2 years, 3 years.
And there are a lot of, and I was going to ask Judge Napolitano about this because a lot of human rights people are like, well, the way he did it was martial law. And I'm like, well, it seemed like they were in the midst of a ongoing multi-front, multi-party war for decades there. So he takes all the gangs. They built this state-of-the-art, brand new maximum security prison.
Very short period of time, too, they built that prison, Joe.
Right. And like it's very, very strict. So Trump has inked a deal with El Salvador, at least in principle, that you will take illegal immigrants we deport, no matter their nationality, not just El Salvadorian. And Trump is saying, I want to take U.S. citizens who have, say, been convicted for life and maybe have multiple charges over their life that they've been convicted on. And instead of, say, a lifer sitting in an Alabama prison, let's send them to El Salvador. Now, that's the question where I don't know if it's legal. Also, you could bring up human rights things, but I'm also like, wait, how much are the human rights being upheld in Alabama's prisons? We've got the feds breathing down our neck for all this stuff.
And you've seen the videos leaked again.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And then you see the videos of the El Salvadorian prison. It's like,
it looks pretty clean.
It is structured
Very
in
organized.
well, but it's 85 prisoners to a cell. Now, a cell is quite large and has like 3 or 4 bunk beds high.
Yep.
And they don't have much. They got a toilet. They got a place to bathe. 85 in one cell. They get about 30 minutes a day to do calisthenics and read. That's all guided, very organized and structured. If you are violent with the guards or other prisoners, they will put you in solitary. And they had a CNN reporter go into the solitary confinement. It's completely pitch black, except for one little ceiling light. I wouldn't want to stay in there more than a minute. So it's hardcore. But it's a shame Napolitano had to run because I think that's a heck of a story.
It could be a tough
right
push,
there.
but I'm not opposed to the idea of it.
Heck of a story.
Yeah.
So we got a lot going on today. I need to hit a quick break. But first, this part of the program brought to you by Josh and Leslie Ryder there at Dillon Rings. And at Dillon Rings, they are a full-service jewelry shop. They are ready to help you across the board, whether you're looking to shop their current inventory from high-end jewelry items to everyday items. But, of course, they can also do repairs, custom design work. Maybe you have an old ring that you wear all the time. You wear it every day. And it's kind of, well, it looks like you wear it every day and have for years.
Shine.
Well, get a spa treatment done. It'll shine and shimmer like it's brand new.
Good idea.
Josh is just that good there at Dillon Rings. And, of course, you just got to stop by there. Get to know them. They're right here in Montgomery, just off of Atlanta Highway on 119 Brown Springs Road, sort of the back end way to the AUM complex. off of Atlanta Highway. And also, it's where the old Fun Zone used to be. You can still see the old Skate Center platform over there. And be sure to tell Josh and Leslie that Joey and Eddie, those guys on the radio, sent you. We'll be right back with Madeline Cannon of Alabama Home Mortgage.
Want to carry News Talk in your pocket? Download the News Talk 93.1 app from the App Store. Available on iPhone and Android. Never miss a moment. Download now.
Hi there, I'm Madeline Cannon with Alabama Home Mortgage. Getting pre-approved is the first step towards home ownership. People are often scared or nervous about taking that first step, but I'll tell you, it's nothing to be scared of. At Alabama Home Mortgage, we will take the first step and every step along the way with you. Call us at 567-4223. We will gather the information needed to tell you exactly what you qualify for. After a call to Alabama Home Mortgage, you will know what price point to shop for, what down payment is required, if any, and what your monthly mortgage payment will look like. We take all the guessing out of it. Then, when you find the house you want to make your home, you are ready to make an offer. Along with your offer, you will submit your Alabama Home Mortgage pre-approval letter. This shows sellers that you've already taken the steps necessary to ensure that you qualify to purchase their home. Wait no longer. It's time to take that first step together. Call me at 567-4223 or start the process online at myalabamahomemortgage.com.
That's Alabama Home Mortgage because, folks, there is a difference in mortgage companies. NMLS 1586-36-8, Equal Housing Lender.
Life insurance. Why are you putting it off? Can't afford it? Too much hassle? Think you don't need it? There's lots of excuses for putting off life insurance. But if you weren't there, who would pay the mortgage and other bills? With Ethos, you could be covered in 10 minutes and boom, family protected. Ethos, fast and easy online term life insurance. Up to $2 million in coverage with no medical exam. Some policies as low as $1 a day. Answer a few health questions and get your free quote at checkethos.com. That's checkethos.com.
ZipRecruiter is the place. ZipRecruiter is the place for talented teachers, savvy software developers, and master mixologists. ZipRecruiter is the place where you meet all these people and more. That's because ZipRecruiter is the place for job seekers who are looking for new opportunities. In fact, ZipRecruiter helps 10 million people with their job search every day, so you can find the right candidates right away. Try ZipRecruiter for free at ziprecruiter.com/free. That's ziprecruiter.com/free.
For too long, Alabama's statewide news companies have shamed us for our conservative Christian values. Alabama deserves a news company that cherishes our culture, a company that isn't bought and paid for by the powers that be. 1819 News is that company. Run by Alabamians for Alabamians, 1819 News celebrates what is good and beautiful about our state, while exposing those who work against our values in secret. Just go to 1819news.com to learn more. Subscribe to our newsletter. That's 1819news.com.
We get Montgomery talking 24 hours a day. The River Region's most trusted voice. News Talk 93.1 FM WACV.
Joey Clark.
Welcome back to News and Views in the afternoon. Again, Luis Elizondo joining us a little after 1 o'clock. Troy Carrico will also be stopping by to join that conversation. He is en route as we speak. But here in the studio now, we have the lovely and talented Madeline Cannon. Madeline, how you doing today?
Doing good, guys. Good to be here with you.
Good to see you.
So how's it going there at Alabama Home Mortgage?
Going well. Still doing mortgages at Alabama Home Mortgage. So this is the time of year where a lot of people are starting to look at purchasing a home, going into spring with more inventory coming on the market. Military's getting their orders. But another thing that comes with this time of year is filing taxes, right?
Oof.
So for those that are thinking they may want to purchase a home this year, I would highly, highly recommend you look at tucking away the money you get in your refund. Why? Because there's a lot of things that we can't control with the interest rate market, right?
Right.
But you can control a little bit what rate is available to you. So I know a lot of people think that credit score is the only thing that goes into rate. Credit score is a huge factor, but the other factor that's considered is your loan to value, meaning how much money are you putting down? Now, that down payment does not offset the credit requirement. You still have to have that 620 minimum credit score. But the more money you can put down, the lower your interest rate.
Okay.
Yes. So a lot of people are like, gosh, I don't have money set aside to cover that down payment. And I say, okay, well, have you filed your taxes yet? No, but we know we're going to be getting a refund. Okay, well, that's going to be a huge step, towards putting money aside for that down payment.
So it's like instead of, whatever length of time the mortgage might be, less money means you're more likely to pay it off. So they're not trying to extract as much interest from you as opposed to, I'm financing everything, that sort of thing.
Right. It's just a less risky transaction for the lender.
Put more skin in the game.
That's right. Yeah. If you're able to put 5% down instead of maybe 3.5%, then, oh, wow, they're able to put more money down. Therefore, their interest rate's going to be lower because our risk is lower.
And so it's more a seasonal thing that you start to see more inventory on the market.
That's right. This time of year, people, they realize that school is coming to an end in May. And so a lot of times people start putting their homes on the market in the spring with the understanding that they can move over the summer and have everybody rooted again by fall.
Okay. Now, are folks also looking to refinance? I know we got a lot of folks waiting for Election Day, and they're like, no, we're waiting until he's sworn in.
Take office.
We're 2 weeks in, and what a 2 weeks it's been.
I know.
Sure has.
He has not had enough time, obviously, to make huge economic changes that would dictate the mortgage market rate yet. But it's still a great time to refinance, especially for those that have found themselves in a big debt. So still looking at debt consolidation rate terms, not as much unless you have an interest rate that's over today's market rate. It wouldn't make sense to do so, but still a lot of people who are looking at doing a cash out refinance, certainly.
Because the interest rates on credit cards in particular, that's the sort of debt you're dealing with. What? They're 24, 29%, depends.
And up. Yeah.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah, that's hard. Like, what's sort of, I know it depends on the person, what's sort of the average interest rate these days?
An average rate, you're looking somewhere around 7.
Okay, so yeah, 7's a lot better than
single
29.
Digits. It's a lot better than double digits.
That's
any
right.
day.
And I just encourage folks to get by there, and especially we keep hammering this home. Veterans. I know there are a lot of veterans out there who think, "Oh, I already used my benefits," or I didn't qualify for that. And it's like, guys, I encourage them to call you, and so they can actually talk to folks in the know on what's the latest, what people actually qualify for.
That's exactly right. Or they've been told that they don't qualify for a VA mortgage because they dealt with a bank or a credit union that doesn't, do but maybe one VA mortgage a year. They didn't deal with somebody who does VA loans all day, every day, that are certified veteran lending specialists. So I encourage you, if you've ever served in the military, active, Guard, or Reserve, to give us a call and let's see exactly what you qualify to do. Now,
is there like a checklist or just some tips and tricks for folks who are like trying to prepare to, say, buy a home? Like certain things they should have in order, maybe to make the process when they call you go faster?
Yeah, so you can give us a call and we'll take your information by phone. The only thing you really need is, I would say, your most recent pay stub on hand. If you're a W-2 wage earner, if you're self-employed, then you'll need to have your last 2 years tax returns on hand. But other than that, I mean, we're able to gather much of what we need in just a 5-minute conversation. But if you would rather, you can always complete an application on our website as well at myalabamahomemortgage.com.
Okay, that's pretty straightforward. Mm-hmm. And one thing I loved is Kim Williams.
Yes, owner of Alabama Home Mortgage.
Yeah, Kim said, Joey, let's at least get you to experience the process. And so she asked me stuff about credit to get just a basic credit score. And she came back, this was years ago. Mm-hmm. She came back and goes, Joey, you have no credit.
Right.
And
that's better than bad credit.
That's true. But it's like, well, you got a little bit of a few year process ahead of you, but she walked me through, here's what you need to do next. And let's just say I'm more in a position now than ever before at Kim and y'all's encouragement, as well as Eddie's over here.
She gave you some solid advice.
Like, I'm in a position now where I'm like, well, if I want to pull the trigger, I can. Like,
that's awesome.
And I love it when the advice really follows through. And it's like, okay, and having the options, knowing you're in the right position, if you want to make that call, I think that makes all the difference.
Absolutely. And we're never going to just say no, right? Like, if it's no today, that doesn't mean it's no tomorrow. And when we pull the credit, we can give you a specific game plan. Okay, these are the steps you need to take to get yourself into a position to become a homeowner.
Now, it would have been kind of funny if she said, you have no credit, click. that would have been just with me. You
would be surprised.
You would be, Joey.
Yeah, there are a lot of places that say, I'm sorry, you don't have a credit score. Call again later.
See you later.
Yeah.
See, and that's not the way. I know y'all don't do it that way because you're thinking ahead. You're like, okay, you want to tell people the truth, number one. You want to give them the best possible deal. It's not like some trickery going on. And if somebody does get that advice from you, they'll come back
That's
in
right.
the years when they're ready.
And we know that the mortgage process can be intimidating, and oftentimes people like consider us like Oz behind the curtain, and it doesn't have to be that way. I mean, there's nothing big, bad, and scary. I tell people all the time, okay, I'm going to give you the numbers, and then I'm going to explain to you why it is this way, right? So you may only qualify for X program because your debt to income is this amount, and this is how they calculate it. And like, we don't want to get too much into the weeds, because at the end of the day, that's what you're calling us to do. Like, you trust us to make, those calls for you.
Right.
But I want people to understand that it's not some kind of backroom deal, right? You should be empowered and educated and understand that you're getting the very best loan program available to you.
So y'all call up Alabama Home Mortgage today if it is the season.
Yes, it is.
567-4223. That's 567-4223. Or as Madeline just said, you can go online, quick questionnaire there at myalabamahomemortgage.com. After you fill that out, y'all will call them and be like, okay, we got your
Absolutely.
application.
It comes right to my inbox, so we'll review it and give you a call.
So y'all check them out. There is a difference in mortgage companies. Let Kim and Madeline here prove that to you today. NMLS number 1586368 at Equal Housing Lender. Got to hit another quick break. We'll be right back. You want to stick around for a second?
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Yeah.
We'll be right back.
He may not know whether he's coming or going, but whether you're going to work or coming home, Greg Budell is there. Mornings 6 till 9 and afternoons 3 till 6. Only on News Talk 93.1 FM WACV.
What's your biggest investment? More than likely, it's your home. So treat it that way when you hire a painting contractor. With PBS Painting, there are no gimmicks, no $99 specials. Just quality painting and someone who treats your home with the same respect that you do. At PBS Painting, we have been painting for years and look forward to many more years to come. With PBS Painting, the job gets prepped properly, whether it's cleaning, scraping, or priming. We always use quality products, which is a must for a quality paint job. So if you're looking for a painter that doesn't need upfront money and is on the job at all times, then please give me a call. Scott Bowers and PBS Painting, 294-5122. That's PBS Painting, 294-5122. Look at some of our work on Facebook at PBS Painting Montgomery.
This is Alice of Independent Glass. We advertise with Blue Water Broadcasting, and we get great results. If you want results like we get, you need to go with Blue Water.
Radio reaches over 90% of everyone in the river region. Shouldn't your ads be out there where your customers are? Call us to find out more. Blue Water Broadcasting. Local folks helping local business.
With the Wall Street Business Report, I'm Rich Thomason. Although China is threatening additional tariffs on U.S. goods effective next Monday, President Trump's tariffs against Mexico and Canada are on hold for at least a month. All of this contributing to uncertainty on Wall Street, where the key indexes opened mixed this morning. China is opening an antitrust investigation of Google, which in any event has only a limited presence in that country. At this point, it's not clear how the investigation will affect Google's ongoing operations in China. With the price of eggs soaring, more people are looking into keeping backyard chickens. It's a pastime that grew with the pandemic and has continued ever since. But if eggs are the goal, there's more to it than some people might think. Local rules may ban chickens or place restrictions on chicken coops and roosters. For the Wall Street Business Report, I'm Rich Thomason.
Rich Thomas weather brought to you by Clark Heating, Air and Plumbing.
Hey, this is Robbie Clark. Spring is almost here. Stay cool with a spring tune-up with Clark Heating, Air and Plumbing. Don't wait. Schedule today. Give us a call at 334-277-2125. Alabama certification number 09098.
Our extended winter thaw hangs on. In fact, we'll be teasing record highs for the rest of the week. Upper 70s today with a good bit of sunshine. Should be dry. Partly cloudy. 55 the overnight low tonight. Will be around 80 to 82 Wednesday. The record is 82. Partly sunny. There could be a few showers on the radar Thursday, Friday, maybe over the weekend as well, with highs 80 or above each day, close to record territory. Just amazing stuff in the dead of winter. From the Blue Water Weather Center, this is Rich Thomas.
CB&S Bank has digital banking solutions to help you keep up. Check balances, pay bills, and much more. Learn more at cbsbank.com. Charges and fees may apply from your cellular service provider. Contact your service provider for information. Member FDIC.
If it concerns your community, you'll hear about it on News Talk 93.1. News Talk 93.1 FM WACV.
Welcome back to News and Views in the afternoon. 272-9228 if you want to get in on the conversation. That's 334-272-9228. Again, Lou Elizonda joining us in the 1 o'clock hour. He should be on till the end of the show once we start going here at 1 o'clock. Before we have Lou on, there is so much happening. So much that makes me happy. For instance, the way the Democrats are reacting. It's like, I don't want to repeat the show from yesterday, Eddie, but Schadenfreude.
The meltdown, Joey. And it's only getting louder.
It's absolutely beautiful. And for instance, here is Chuck Schumer. And Schumer is talking about, well, I'll just let him speak for himself. But he's doing a classic game here that the Democrats have been doing for a while, just projecting what he's actually protecting, trying to keep secret. I think what he says is a new shadow government has taken hold. Let's listen in.
Before our very eyes, an unelected shadow government is conducting a hostile takeover of the federal government.
Yeah, they're just telling everybody what they're going to do in front of billions of people on X while they campaign with Donald Trump, who was elected big time. Chuck, keep going.
Friday night, the so-called Department of Government Efficiency, led by billionaire Elon Musk, gained access to...
Wait, hold on. I'm sorry to keep interrupting that dope there, but when did billionaire become a bad thing? Yeah, it's like the early criticism of Trump. It's like, especially when you're talking to young men, it's like, it's not cool to have billions of dollars and have all the women love you. That's just not cool at all, man.
It's very cool, Joey.
Yeah.
It's very cool.
Like Batman was a dork.
They love the billionaires that support them.
Right. Oh, yeah, of course.
Right.
100%.
They gave George Soros the Presidential Medal of Freedom.
Right.
Oh, my God.
to the Treasury Department's entire system of payments, including Social Security and Medicare benefits and Americans' tax refunds. I'll say more on this in a moment.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
But that was not all. This weekend, DOGE staffers also executed what can only be described as an illegal seizure of the U.S. Agency for International Development, or USAID. We don't know who these DOGE staffers are. We don't know if they have security clearances. We don't know what legal authority they have to access USAID facilities, if any. But we do know a few things.
It's called the authority of the president,
Thought
you
so.
dope.
Thought so.
The president can pick his advisors. And it is truly remarkable, like, how they just keep saying things out loud. For instance, ABC actually put this out there. ABC actually published this story in part, and it's about Elon and DOGE at the direction of the duly elected president of the United States. They actually went in there and started, like, taking away access to people's computers, like all these things. And so this one lady, I'll try to put it nicely, this one lady was, what was she doing? She was saying, it's almost like, when the bosses come, it's like, hide all the stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, hide the stuff. He hadn't been in this room forever.
Right.
So we better hide what we've actually been up to. I'll just play the clip. Here it is.
But Elon Musk's influence is sweeping throughout the administration. It was late last week that the DOGE team showed up at USAID offices in Washington and demanded access. USAID employee Christina Dry described the scene.
DOGE was in the building. We took down our pride flags. I took out any books I felt would be incriminating. No one was talking.
What books would be incriminating?
I don't know, but I like the fact that they took them down. I wish there's no need to have them, so take them down.
We heard they started taking transcripts automatically of all of our Google Meets.
Oh, no. The truth might come out.
They unplugged the news in the little kitchen galleys. It didn't feel good. And then Saturday, all of the websites went down. And then I lost complete access to my computer.
What a shame. What an absolute shame
Hate it
that
for
this is going on. I think it's beautiful. And it is sort of the, Well, it's what we voted for. They're acting like it's a shadow government. It's like, no, literally in front of billions of people, they were saying what they were going to do.
Yep.
What a shadow government was is who was running the country when
Yes,
Biden was
exactly.
president.
USAID, and I love how they call it USA because international development is much more like, well, and they do this classic thing of like, what we'll do is we'll send some money to kids. And at the same time, will be a great carve out for the CIA, DOD, and State Department. I mean, and by the way, Troy Carrico here. We don't have a camera on him, but he's on.
That's okay. I'm good looking still without it. At any rate, I worked with USAID when I was with the Corps of Engineers, and it is a rudderless ship. It seems like each little kingdom and fiefdom that is out there in the different areas of Africa and in Asia, they go with these bizarre projects, and they ask the Corps of Engineers to come in. They build wells 40 miles out away from population. It's just a bizarre thing. Think Peace Corps on steroids with a lot of money and a lot of discretion to spend that money. And cleaning that up, just freezing that alone, and then some foreign military sales to countries that are not our friends could put a lot of money back in our coffers.
Well, and they want to be like, oh, it's these DOGE people, these shadowy figures. You mean like 6 autistic guys who are sleeping in what's the new fancy 8 sleep pods or whatever, so they can have like the most maximalized, like optimized performance as they just cut through government. And it's genius. You go to HR, you go to internal chat and logs, and you go to payments, and you find everything. It's almost like Elon's done this before with, say, Twitter and other companies.
Right.
And she had to take her pride flag down.
Oh, no. Inappropriate books. And so they're also like, and these people, none of these people are elected or confirmed by the Senate. It's like, well, guess who's in charge of USAID now?
State Department.
Yeah.
Rubio, and it should have been up under State Department the first day in place.
And here's Marco Rubio talking about that.
USAID. The head of DOGE, Elon Musk, called USAID a criminal organization and added that it is time for it to die. Do you agree with that?
They have basically evolved into an agency that believes that they're not even a U.S. government agency. That they are a global charity, that they take the taxpayer money and they spend it as a global charity, irrespective of whether it is in the national interest or not in the national interest. One of the most common complaints you will get if you go to embassies around the world from State Department officials and ambassadors and the like is USAID is not only not cooperative, they undermine the work that we're doing in that country. They are supporting programs that upset the host government for whom we're trying to work with on a broader scale and so forth. So they're completely unresponsive. They just don't consider that they work for the U.S. They just think they're a global entity and that their master is the globe and not the United States. And that's not what the statute says, and that's not sustainable.
Can it be reformed, or does it need to die?
Well, that was always the goal, was to reform it. But now we have rank insubordination. Now we have basically an active effort where their basic attitude is, we don't work for anyone. We work for ourselves. No agency of government can tell us what to do. So the president made me the acting administrator. I've delegated that power to someone who's there full time, and we're going to go through the same process at USAID as we're going through now at the State Department.
Now, and how was Rubio? What was the vote roll on Rubio's
confirmation?
Yeah, 99-0.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
So all of you guys
Clean
approved
sweep.
him.
Yeah.
He's the one now running this thing. And then Mike Benz, who used to work at State Department and has done wonders of like getting into the weeds of like where all this funding goes. He really started to freak out when it's like, it's not like, oh, you've been creating these capacities in foreign countries to help you, say, with the Arab Spring or Ukraine or something like that. Or on silly crap, like a transgender play to Ireland for $1 million, which you're like, okay, how much does it take to put on a play? Where's all that other money going? He really started to freak out when that money circles back to domestic politics. So everybody hears about the George Soros prosecutors.
Right.
Yeah. Actually, you should call them USAID prosecutors because the amount of money given.
Alvin Bragg received an enormous amount.
Millions.
Millions of dollars.
Millions and millions of dollars.
For a state and local DA. What's the connection?
And you remember all the independent fact checkers that Facebook was using and the Stanford Internet Observatory? There was like, the Ruskies are behind everything. USAID funded a lot of that stuff. And then you look at people like Bill Kristol. You might remember him from the days in Fox News during the Iraq War and the Weekly Standard editor, all that. He started squealing like a stuck pig. I think he just said, like, I prefer the deep state to the Musk state. And then somebody immediately found, Bill, why did you personally and your organization get millions from USAID?
Yeah.
And so a lot of these think tanks, a lot of these media carve-outs and pop-ups, it's all this. It's genius. It's genius. They burrowed in within 2 weeks and found this thing. And I think it's only the beginning.
It is.
This is
just
exactly
off the top,
why,
man.
yeah. This is exactly why they didn't want him back.
Right.
It's beautiful.
There's much more to be found.
Oh, there's no doubt.
Oh, yeah. And I'm all on board. Now, I was saying yesterday, I kind of feel bad for the average, like, libs, not that political. They just, like fancy things or whatever.
Bouncing off walls.
But when it comes to these bureaucrats, these
Yeah.
elected officials, Schadenfreude.
I'm loving it.
Take great delight watching them suffer.
And there, by the way, there's no way to say that word where it isn't a little rouse people up.
Have you tried to say it slow?
Schadenfreude.
Nope. You're right.
Yeah, people have seen too many World War II documentaries. They're like, what are you talking about?
All I can think of is Bane in Dark Knight when he goes, "Your punishment must be more severe."
I thought you were going to do the classic, like,
no one cared who I was till I put on the mask.
So it's kind of amazing to see all this happening all at the same time. We're going to have to get into it. Now, I'm going to bring up definitely some of this stuff with Lou because I know he's going to have some insights. Should be a fun conversation. Real quick, this part of the program brought to you by James Cole and Cole Plumbing, and they're at Cole Plumbing. They're ready to help you out with any and all of your plumbing needs. Could be a big job, like a burst pipe inside or outside your home. Well, they'll solve it, understanding time is of the essence, and they're not going to make a big mess. They don't have to tear out a bunch of drywall or dig up a huge hole in your yard. They can do it with precision and expertise with this proprietary pipelining technology there at Cole Plumbing. Then, of course, they can help with clogged drains, low water pressure. Maybe you need to install a new garbage disposal or add new accessories to the bathroom, like a taller toilet if your hips and knees are starting to give out if you're getting up there in age.
Why are you looking at me? You saw that.
Have you seen him waddle in here, everyone? Like,
if I drive the little car, yeah, it takes me
Yeah,
a minute.
Ooh, my bones, Joe. Y'all check out Cole Plumbing today. Make an appointment by calling them at 279-8919. That's 279-8919. And just remember, folks, when you have trouble with your bowl,
call on Cole, Joey.
Let's go to line 1. You're on there. Who's this?
It's Charles the First.
Hey, Charles.
Hey, Joey, Eddie, Madeline. I hope y'all doing good.
Wonderful.
I called about 3 weeks ago telling you about the those in the mental health facilities. The reason I'm saying this, I don't want to be off subject, but you were talking about El Salvador and the Alabama prison systems. How come I called, Joey?
Yeah.
Remember I told you, and I wanted Eddie to be clear, I'm not for being easy on any criminals. These were just persons that were in the mental health facilities that closed when Riley shut them down, Eddie.
Right.
And they went to prisons, and for their own safety, they were put in isolation, some of them from years, with less than what you were saying they had in El Salvador, Joey. But what I'm calling is, remember I told you that I was a part of a documentary that I did.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well,
in the movies.
Yes, I'm going to be in the background. Well, I went with the crew there for hours and hours. Now, not to the prisons. Mine was with Stacy there at the Department of Correction, and my part had to do with those persons that were from the mental health facility. You got me? I don't want people getting, from my daddy and what he was undercover and stuff. I could have some of them in there wanting to harm me if they got out. I don't want them out.
Right.
But I was going to tell you, it did really good. At 1 week ago today, on Wednesday, it was aired at the Sundance Film Festival, and it got a 94% rating.
Oh, wow.
And it's going to be theatrically released, and then it will constantly be an HBO documentary. That's where it'll go to. So I wanted y'all to know that. It might not hurt just to go look, just go see it. You know what I mean?
Right.
What's the title? It's called The Alabama Solution. And, y'all, that's based on Kay Ivey saying this is the Alabama Solution. That's where the title comes from. And the Los Angeles Times, you'll be interested in this, Joy. The Los Angeles Times did a video interview where they asked Director Jarecki, he did that movie, the Jinx, or whatever you call it, documentary, and Charlotte Kaufman. They said, what would you like to say or ask Kay Ivey? And they say, how or why is she so insulated from what's going on in the state of Alabama and the citizens, press or anybody? That's the thing they asked, and that's kind of what you and Craig kind of brought up. And I thought, wow, that's on a national level saying, she's kind of insulated by somebody from what's actually maybe going on.
It's pretty noticeable.
Well, it is. That's a good word for it. A very polite diplomatic word. But we'll see. She's got to be in the limelight tonight, right, with the State of the State.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, she will be. She sure will be, and that'll be interesting to see how that goes. And it will also be interesting to see what our legislators and senators do. And let's hope it's not nepotism, cronyism, and a bunch of stuff that gets nothing done, like wanting gambling or money given to you for another prison that isn't going to house one more person. I'm sincerely hoping that Mr. Davis, ex-Admiral Davis, retired Admiral Davis, runs for governor myself.
I think he's thinking about it.
Yeah,
Admiral Davis definitely thinking about it.
Definitely.
I would think that would be wonderful. Or somebody step up. It's not just the same old thing. We don't need just another whoever left and somebody's in office and they have a name in there that gets to become our governor or any high office, And really, really like Andrew Sorrell. I don't reckon he's running for anything, but trust him very much so, y'all.
Yep.
Anyway,
Andrew will be guest hosting the show with me sometime this month. I forget the exact date here in February, but coming up soon.
I hope he's going to do what he was talking about. I don't like that, potentially Kay Ivey there got money for her campaign from a nonprofit or anyone else from an LLC, and the citizens can't know where that money that got them elected come from or where the payback might go to.
Mm-hmm.
And but I appreciate y'all letting me volunteer y'all. That just be watched out for it there. And
the Alabama solution. I appreciate it.
Have a great day.
Thank you, Charles. See you, bud.
272-9228. Before I hit a break, I gotta get this in. Because he's always good as a palate cleanser, but this time he's not just a palate cleanser, he's also on topic.
Yeah.
So it's funny and on topic. United States Senator John Kennedy. He was on my Adopted Godfather show last night,
Yes,
Sean
he was.
Hannity. And I still don't know why I did that. Like, he doesn't even, I'm your godson, and you won't even speak to me.
Don't feel so bad. Billy Clinton's got a son out there. He doesn't know.
It's like, did all that teeth whitening go to the skull, through the skull, into the brain? Like, anyway, here's Senator John Kennedy on with Hannity. This is just classic Kennedy.
Let me say first, Sean, that it's kind of cool having a president again. Let me try to put all this in context for you. I like omelets. I mean, I really like omelets. I could eat an omelet at every meal. I like omelets better than sex. Not really, but you get the point. I like omelets. You can't make an omelet without breaking some eggs. Now, President Trump ran for office saying, I'm going to review every single penny in the federal budget. Now, how are you going to review the spending in the federal budget without reviewing the spending? And that's what Mr. Musk is doing. Now, many of my Democratic colleagues and some of the tofu-eating wokarati at the USAID are screaming like they're part of a prison riot because they don't want us reviewing the spending. But that's all Mr. Musk is doing, and he's finding some pretty interesting stuff. To my friends who are upset, I would say with respect, call somebody who cares. They better get used to this. It's USAID today. It's going to be Department of Education tomorrow. Mm-hmm. And really, here's what's going on. For 4 years under President Biden, the people in charge ask one simple question. Who needs to pay more in taxes? Who needs to pay more in taxes? Well, that's not the question that the Republicans and President Trump are going to ask. Our question is, what the hell happened to the money? And that's all that's going on.
Yep.
Beautiful. Well put and hilarious.
Keep it simple.
This part of the program brought to you by Montgomery Men's Health, and they're at Montgomery Men's Health. They're ready to help you fellas out, especially if you're just feeling run down all the live long day, physically and mentally. It's like you're trudging through mud and walking through a fog, trying to get things done in life. And maybe you're, getting into your middle age, 50s, 60s, and you're starting to feel like you're haunted by your younger self. Like you used to be able to go all day, all night. Now you're just petering out right after lunch. I know you guys out there, you eat lunch and it's like, time to take a nap. If you're feeling this way, like unwanted weight gain, loss of muscle mass, no sex drive to speak of, pardon me, but it's a thing, not having one. Well, knowing whether you have low testosterone is huge in combating some of these issues, and the providers there at Montgomery Men's Health will conduct a testosterone-focused lab workup plus a consultation for only $99, and they have low-T treatments there at Montgomery Men's Health that can truly change men's lives. Men can experience higher energy, better gains in the gym, brother, better mental clarity, improved sleep patterns, a faster metabolism, and you usually even notice an increased libido. And you can actually book the same day that you call. That number, 440-3663. That's 440-3663. Or go to MontgomeryMen'sHealth.com to book your appointment today. 30-second break. We'll be right back.
Want to carry News Talk in your pocket? Download the News Talk 93.1 app from the App Store. Available on iPhone and Android. Never miss a moment. Download now.
For many children, stability is something they have never experienced. At the Alabama Sheriff's Youth Ranches, we offer hope, healing, and a family to children in need. Behind every success story, our house parents are the heart of our ranches. We're looking for compassionate couples to join our mission. We provide housing, medical benefits, a 401k, paid vacation, and the chance to make a lasting difference. The Alabama Sheriff's Youth Ranches. Be the love, be the guidance, be the family they need. Visit alsyr.org.
News and talk without the static. The River Region's most trusted voice. News Talk 93.1 FM WACV.
Joey Clark.
Welcome back to News and Views in the afternoon. Turn down the music, hippie. Howdy. Dadgum. See, some of these producers, you can't control them at all. Hey, this part of the program brought to you by Pest Pro Services. And at Pest Pro, they're ready to help you with any and all of your pest control needs.
That's so right, Joey. Mosquito season's coming up, Joey.
Yeah.
We're like probably less than a month away.
Like right around the corner.
Yeah, in March. So as low as $50 a month, they can come out and do mosquito services on your house.
That's worth it.
We do it up at our Airbnb, which is right on the lake, and it's amazing. That's one complaint I've never gotten all year long is from any mosquitoes, which is great. Being on the water, you're going to get them. So this obviously proves that it works. So you can fight the bite. That now includes mosquitoes, fleas, and ticks. So, let them help you take your backyard back. Honestly, this year is going to be a great one. We want to have lots of celebrations. The last thing you want to do is find your kids over there getting bit by fire ants.
Or like, it's like you want to have some time outside after dinner and sit on the back porch or something. And it's like, hold on, Grandma, let me spray you with some off.
and we talked about the torches. That's not really where to go right now. It'd be better just to have no worries.
Don't spray Grandma, spray the yard.
Yeah.
Get it treated.
Exactly.
And they $50 a month?
$50 a month.
That's an amazing
And it
deal.
works great. I'm telling you, it works great. I've seen this in action. So again, if you want to take your yard back this year, give Pest Pro a call. You'll want to use them as your everyday Pest Pro services. I can assure you I use them. Most of my friends use them. Never had any trouble at all. They're one of the best things about them is they call me before they leave or before they go, and they call me after they leave, let me know if they saw anything.
That number, 265-9990. That's 265-9990. Or you can always go to ppsriverregion.com or just search Pest Pro Services on the Book of Faces. Yeah. When you want to know, call a pro. Pest Pro Services. And be sure to tell Ashley and that great team that Joey and Eddie, those fellas on the radio, sent you. So before we hit the top of the hour here, it's coming up quick. And we bring Lou on.
Yeah.
Tell us what flag do you have with you today, Troy?
Today we are celebrating our romance portion of the Greco-Roman experience. This is SPQR. And an interesting fact: the Roman Empire did not have an official standard flag. They used a lot of standards like wolves. They used the Aquila, the eagle, on top of a pole. But they did have a couple banners, and this banner would always fly when Senate was in session because it stands for Senatus Populesque and then Romanus, and it means for Rome and the Senate of the people. So that's what we're doing in our Heritage Series again.
Well, I like
today.
it.
I didn't know on all the detail, but I did recognize that one at least today.
I got you. I got some that's going to really, they kind of confuse me too, so they'll be coming. Yeah.
Well, I'm looking forward to our conversation here with Lou Elizonda, folks, on the other side of this break. Y'all stay tuned. We got plenty to cover today.
Yeah.
Broadcasting from the Riverside Chevrolet Master Control Center, this is WACV Cusada, News Talk 93.1 FM. When it's Chevy, it's Riverside.
With SRN News, I'm John Scott. The Senate Finance Committee voting to advance Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s nomination to head the Health and Human Services Agency for a floor vote. The Senate also voting later today to confirm Pam Bondi as Attorney General, and a Senate vote for Tulsi Gabbard as Director of National Intelligence scheduled for later today. Texas National Guard soldiers can arrest and detain people for entering the U.S. illegally from Mexico. That's under an agreement with the Trump administration that expands the military's role in immigration enforcement. This new authority is a shift for the Guard and the military broadly, which has been limited to a supporting role for the Border Patrol. On Wall Street, the Dow adding 78 points, the NASDAQ Composite up 227. This is SRN News.
Wesley Financial Group is not a law firm. If you own a timeshare, don't miss this public service announcement from Chuck McDowell, founder of Wesley Financial Group.
If you receive an unsolicited phone call or mail piece to discuss selling, renting, or especially canceling your timeshare, don't fall for it. If you really want out of your timeshare, hang the phone up immediately or throw that mail piece in the trash and contact your timeshare resort or Wesley Financial Group for assistance with your timeshare. As the only Inc. 500 timeshare cancellation company, our knowledge, experience, and results has made Wesley a trusted resource for over 40,000 families we've helped get out of their timeshare. Give us a call and I'll send you our timeshare exit information kit free with the straight facts about your timeshare and all of your options for cancellation.
Call for your free info kit. 800-885-3333. That's 800-885-3333. 800-885-3333.
Rich Thomas weather, a service of Wiley Sanders Truck Lines, where over-the-road dump truck drivers are needed right now. Home twice a week and every weekend, must leave early on Sunday with Blue Cross Blue Shield. Call them now at 855-777-9785.
Our extended winter thaw hangs on. In fact, we'll be teasing record highs for the rest of the week. Upper 70s today with a good bit of sunshine. Should be dry. Partly cloudy. 55 the overnight low tonight. Will be around 80 to 82 Wednesday. The record is 82. Partly sunny. There could be a few showers on the radar Thursday, Friday, maybe over the weekend as well, with highs 80 or above each day, close to record territory. Just amazing stuff in the dead of winter. From the Blue Water Weather Center, this is Rich Thomas.
You can make your ASE loan payment from your phone anytime, anywhere. It's quick and easy. YourASECreditUnion.com. Federally insured by NCUA. Equal Opportunity Lender.
ASE Credit Union. Your life, your goals, your ASE.
From the Blue Water Broadcasting News Center, these are today's top stories. Montgomery police have released the name of the juvenile killed in a weekend double shooting. 17-year-old Jacoby Douglas was the person shot and killed Saturday night in the 1200 block of Eastern Boulevard near Carmichael Road. An unidentified man who was also shot remains in critical condition. 2 men have been arrested for attempting to smuggle drugs into the Elmore Correctional Facility. Kamari Rashawn Green and Shaquan Horton were found with large quantities of controlled substances in their vehicle outside the prison gate. Among other crimes, Green and Horton are charged with trafficking marijuana, methamphetamine, fentanyl, ecstasy, and hydrocodone. The Auburn Tigers are number 1 in the AP Men's College Basketball poll for the 4th consecutive week. Bruce Pearl's 20-1 Tigers were the unanimous choice at number 1, claiming all 62 first-place votes in the new poll released on Monday. Alabama at 19-3 moved up to number 3 this week. The Tide and Tigers will meet for the first time this season on February 15th in Tuscaloosa. From the Blue Water Broadcasting News Center, I'm Sky Mosley.
This hour of news and views is brought to you by our good friends at Alabama Home Mortgage. Alabama Home Mortgage, 567-4223. Visit them on the web at myalabamahomemortgage.com. NMLS number 1586368, an equal housing lender.
When you need a new door or window replaced, you want it done right. Someone who delivers expert craftsmanship every time. Experience is a must. Listen, Davis Door and Sash. They can show you new doors and windows that can help you lower your utility bills and boost energy efficiency. Davis Door and Sash, Alabama.com or call 334-288-6010. Davis Door and Sash, the perfect fit for your home.
Now you can add the power of digital advertising to the #1 reach of radio. Let Blue Water's 20 years of local advertising and marketing success show you how. Grow your business with a complete suite of digital solutions, combined with the reach of the most listened to radio group in the river region. Call us or go to BlueWaterBroadcasting.com to find out how we can increase your return on investment. Blue Water Broadcasting, local folks helping local business.
For more information, send an email to digital@BlueWaterBroadcasting.com.
The views and opinions of the following program are solely those of the host and other contributors. These do not necessarily represent those of Liberty Acquisitions 825, Blue Water Broadcasting, its management, staff, or any advertisers. It's time for Montgomery's conversational radio show. It's news and views on News Talk 93.1 FM. To join the conversation, call 272-9228.
Joey Clark.
Welcome back. Now, folks, as promised, looking forward to the return of this great guest here on the program. We have Lou Elizonda joining us. Lou, how you doing today, sir? Sorry, I had you muted. I apologize. Good to hear you.
Oh, that's okay. No one wants to hear my voice, anyways. To be honest with you, I'm doing better than I deserve. There's an old saying we have in the military, us old timers: any day above ground is a good day.
That's
so,
right.
You have to forgive the disheveled appearance here. I didn't. A bunch of flights got canceled yesterday coming in. I didn't get in until dark this 30. Didn't get a chance to get much sleep, and I'm dealing with kind of the remnants of COVID. So forgive me, folks. If I look like something the cat dragged in, it's because it pretty much did.
Well, I appreciate you being a good sport here and joining us. And well, let's start with something topical. I saw you post about it, and I was kind of getting a little outraged myself, looking at the outrage of senators on the Intelligence Committee as they were interviewing Tulsi Gabbard for the job to be the Director of National Intelligence. I think that vote is happening now or about to happen to be advanced out of committee. Do you think Tulsi's a good fit there at DNI?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I was at the DNI, and the problem is a lot of people who don't know who she is, they read a newspaper report because somebody has an agenda that's slanted, and they take it and they run with it. Oh, look, she is a Russia sympathizer. She's this, she's that. My recommendation to people: stop labeling individuals and do the research yourself, and you'll realize that they have a fantastic track record. This is an individual who served her nation in uniform, became a field grade officer. Yep. And then if that wasn't enough success, then ran and was elected as representative for her state. And so she did that, right? And then now she's still fighting the fight. She's still serving her country. So she's extremely intelligent. I personally believe she has the experience necessary and also the savvy to do that job. She understands intelligence. She understands national security, and she understands the need and what it is to serve and sacrifice in some cases for your country. So she is very, very, very well qualified. I don't understand a lot of the resentment. I've had a lot of people come back and on social media and criticize me for it, and my opinion is, look, I'm not always going to agree with you. Sorry. By the way, I know her experience, and she's really, really good. And, unless you think you can do a better job, step up to the plate, but she's got my vote for sure.
A lot of that sour grapes. Don't you think it's sour grapes? I mean, from the Democratic Party, they've kind of put her on a watch list for flying. They trashed her. She was a cult member involved with this cult. I mean, they just did this bad job on her, man.
Yeah, terrible, dirty tactics and stuff that Troy, you know, obviously I've experienced in social media as well.
I know you have.
They've taken it to another level, and you know what has she done? She's held her head up high, and she continues to serve proudly. So. I just think this is the way politics is, unfortunately. You're going to get people coming out and making things up about individuals. But yeah, they've went after her. You know, I mean, you want to talk about retribution. They've definitely conducted retribution against her because she did not toe her party's line. Again, I'm not being political here, just saying, not that, you know, Republicans have done the same thing in the past too. So, you know, they don't get a free pass. But I'm saying in this particular case, a lot of what I see is being motivated by political affiliations and not real facts or substance.
Yeah. Hey, Lou, real fast, and I don't want to take you off kilter, but talk a little bit just about the ODNI. I tried to explain to the crew last time here that is a deconflicting head of, but there's a lot of power still, a lot of power with the agencies and the bureaucrats in the agencies. Talk a little bit about that and how that can affect.
If you understand what the DNI actually is, you first really have to go back to, and I know this is going to be kind of a historical lesson for some folks, but 1947, right on the heels of World War II, the Congress realized that even though we won the war, that there was a disconnect between, for example, the ground forces in the South Pacific and the naval forces conducting operations, and there wasn't a single belly button to serve as a senior coordinator. So the National Security Act of 1947 establishes basically the Title X authorities for national security. It establishes in what we now know as the Department of Defense. And it's also what at the time called Secretary of War. It's now called the Secretary of Defense. And the purpose of that was to coordinate the efforts of all the military organizations. So whether it's the services or it's the major combatant commands or the regional combatant commands and whatever military organizations are out there, they would fall under a single belly button to avoid some of the lessons learned that we experienced during World War II. So long story short, 50 some years later, you have September 11th. And one of the results of September 11th was the recognition that the FBI and the CIA and the DOD all had bits and pieces of the puzzle, but wasn't sharing information. And so they, under what they call the Intelligence Reform and Terrorism Prevention Act of 2004, IRTPA, there was a mandate to establish, kind of like they did with the Secretary of Defense, a Secretary for Intelligence, and that would be the Director of National Intelligence to kind of, if you will, corral the 16 other intelligence organizations. A lot of people don't realize that we have a lot of intelligence organizations in our country. People just assume CIA is it, but there's all sorts of groups like NSA, National Security Agency, NGA, National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, NRO, National Reconnaissance Office, right? CIA, FBI, all the armed services have their own. So you needed a kind of this chief Bubba or Bubette to corral everybody and to make sure information was being shared in an efficient manner across the entire intelligence enterprise. And so that's what the DNI is. And their job is to make sure, and of course, it's a cabinet level position, to reports directly to the president, to make sure that the U.S. intelligence community is operating in an efficient and an effective manner.
Now, and if you're a president, especially a unique one like Trump is, I'd imagine you want somebody who's maybe briefing you every day that you really can trust, as opposed to somebody who has a good resume, but you don't know them from Adam.
Right. Well, and there's actually real title issues, authorities issues, right? So within the DOD, you have Title X authorities. So that's basically military intelligence. But under, for example, the CIA, you have something called Title 50 authorities, which says they can do certain things that the military can't, and vice versa. And so if you have, for example, the director of the CIA advising the president, he or she may not have access to a lot of the information that's in some other organization. So you have to create this kind of super user position, so to speak, that has access to everything and can very quickly and efficiently inform the president.
Now, in terms of Tulsi impacting the, say, a coherent way to bring transparency to the UAP issue, how important is her being in that role for the UAP issue?
And it's not just UAP, it's drones and it's U.S. air domain awareness. These are problems we've been dealing with for a long time. People think this is all new. look, the drone flap that happened in New Jersey is very much the same one we had in 2019 over Colorado, Nebraska, and Kansas, right? And by the way, before that, in 2011, you had people that were planning to blow up, the Capitol building using remote control planes and putting C4 explosives on it. And then you have, people say, well, we know what's in our skies. Well, do we really? Look at the Chinese spy balloons. Look what happened over the Potomac just last week with a helicopter and an aircraft, killing 67 civilians, right? And well, 60 some, and then you have your 3 military personnel. It's a tragedy that could have been avoided. And the bottom line is we don't have a coherent understanding of what everything is in our skies. And that's a fact. And so to say that we do, really, you're just misleading yourself and you're misleading other people. So it is imperative. And Tulsi Gabbard said, for the record, in one of her discussions with Congress, one of her first priorities was going to get to the bottom of what's going on with U.S. air domain. Drones and UAP and spy balloons and everything else. That is hugely important. And if you look at how we have been attacked in the past, go back even to World War II when the Japanese were developing balloons with bombs that actually succeeded in flying with the jet stream and dropping bombs in mainland United States, where people have actually been killed, believe it or not. There was a bomb that exploded and killed some individuals. I guess it fell in a forest. So, we've got a challenge on our hands, and I believe that Tulsi is perfectly positioned. She understands the issues very well, and she can coordinate very well with the director of the CIA. Let's not forget, John Radcliffe is coming back into the picture. Marco Rubio, who is a Senate Select Committee on Intelligence, one of the senior people there. So she's the right person for the job for sure.
Now, when you look at Congress, and I know you've recently put out an op-ed suggesting how we get control of our skies, as well as maybe other aspects, who are, and I mean, this might be crude, but who are the good guys, who are the bad guys in the United States Congress? Who do you really think is being honest and good faith about this, and maybe others that might be holding some stuff back here?
So, my mother always told me, if you have nothing kind to say, don't say it at all. So let me stick with the good guys, and we'll kind of forget about the bad guys right now. But you have folks like Representative Burchett from Tennessee there. Fantastic human being, has been a champion for this cause. And frankly, he's just a really decent human being. You have Eric Burleson as well, who's been very, very proactive in trying to get to the truth behind this topic. And I applaud him for that. You have folks like Representative Nancy Mace and Representative Luna, that are doing an incredible job in trying to champion this cause for the American people, because they understand the national security imperatives. On the Senate side, you have folks like Senator Mike Rounds out of South Dakota, my neighboring state here. Marco Rubio, who's now the Secretary of State, right? Believe it or not, Chuck Schumer on the other side of the aisle has been very, very helpful in this topic. Senator Booker, who's actually his home state's New Jersey, has been very, very concerned about drones and not having complete air domain awareness in our sky. So you do have a lot of people. Then you have a lot of people in the shadows too that are equally interested, but they just haven't been quite as public or vocal about it. And there's, by the way, a handful of others that have been very, very good as well that deserve recognition. But I don't want to take all your time.
Since we're sitting here in Alabama, has anybody in the Alabama delegation, whether our 2 senators or congressmen, shown any interest in this, to your knowledge?
Yeah. There have been really more in the past, the last maybe 5 years. You have some folks that were very interested in it. Look, let's not forget Alabama, Rocket City, right? Huntsville, Alabama. So they have a vested interest in this.
Absolutely.
And you've also got a lot of R&D going on there, and you've got a lot of things going on. So I think we're finally at a critical mass where we're finally getting the right politicians engaged, and they realize their constituents are calling them and telling them, look, this is an important topic. We've got to get ahead of this. We want you to champion this. And so that's very, very encouraging. And then you have media outlets. Look at yourself, right? Who are actually deciding to have a conversation despite the risk you might have to one's credibility. Look, 8 years ago, you tried to have an intelligent conversation about this topic, and they would pigeonhole you as a tinfoil hat person. Now we realize, you know what? There are things on our skies. We don't know what they are. We don't know where they're from. The governments had already admitted it. So let's have the conversation.
Yeah, and I've learned over these years, especially in this new era of media, which I think is bringing more transparency, is just have the conversation. After the fact, you might be like, well, I don't believe it or not, but continue to have the conversation, let the information out. It's sort of compartmentalizing and controlling the conversation that I think has been our issue.
If there's nothing to see there, then why would you classify it? The bottom line, you don't
Right.
classify something that doesn't exist.
But their modus operandi is to ridicule you and to make you look foolish. And that's getting, I think, don't you feel like we've gotten more traction now, though, of late?
100%, Troy, 100%.
Yeah.
You're right. It used to be the old MO of deny everything, admit nothing,
That's
and
right.
counter accusations.
Just keep doing it.
Was the way that was the old MO, the old TTP, if you will, that the government liked to use to keep squelching this conversation. But now you have even individuals in the FBI. And by the way, they're doing a hell of a job. I mean, they're doing just a bang up job trying to work on this topic. There was an article that recently came out in a major mainstream outlet. And people don't realize we have some real American patriots right now, like real American patriots, really willing to risk everything to get to the bottom of this for the American people. And they are some of these are folks in the CIA and the FBI and the DOD. And it's wonderful to see because these are true Americans. And they're like, you know what, to hell with politics. I signed up to defend this country from all enemies, foreign and domestic. And that's what they're doing. And so I think we're seeing that, my hope is that this is going to lead to a new renaissance, if you will, for our nation. We are already seeing that this administration is not afraid to make decisions. And look, proof is in the pudding. Some could argue he's done more in a week than the last administration did in the last 4 years.
True.
It really is incredible.
Yeah, it is incredible. I mean, look what happened recently with the tariffs, right? In Mexico and Canada, and all of a sudden, like, hey, you know what? We're willing to talk to you. Why couldn't they do that before? Right? Look at the Panama Canal. I mean, they're going to sell it to the Chinese. I was one of the last intelligence officers there. I was the operations officer in Panama when we gave the Panama Canal back after a 99-year lease with the Panamanians. But there was a stipulation. Look, you got to keep this canal for yourself. You can't sell it off. And what they were selling it to the Chinese. And I know for a fact because it's been happening for a long time.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say names here, but it's been very frustrating because, like President Trump said, 35,000 Americans died trying to build the Panama Canal, and all that would be in vain. And now you're going to give it to a foreign adversary? What, for a couple bucks? So, I really, really applaud what's happening right now as far as being decisive and making strategic decisions. I've always said that the UAP topic, however, is bipartisan. In fact, should be nonpartisan. And I am happy to say, and by the way, I give credit where credit is due, right? So people think that I'm giving a whole lot of crap to the Democrats. I'm not. They've done some really good policies too. And by the way, their championing of the UAP topic has been very, very helpful. So, I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. I do think there's a lot of credit to be taken on both sides of this conversation, both on the liberal and the conservative side. And it's happening. And you're also seeing liberal media taking this topic seriously and beginning to report on this. And I think that's a result of the grassroots efforts of people like you and Troy that are willing to put a little bit of your credibility on the line, have a conversation with the American people. You are in the media, you are part of mainstream media, and you're also part of this new type of media that's really new for us as a nation, where we've democratized mainstream media to the point now, if you can make your own platform and you got good content, guess what? You can be right up there with the big boys. And I think that's great. And more people like you that are willing to not worry about stigma and taboo, right? And actually have an intelligent conversation with your audience about a topic that really involves every single one of us and is a national security issue. I think it's important. And I think we're only succeeding because of what you folks are doing right now. It's really not what I'm doing. It's really what you're doing. And our leadership in our country and our elected officials are paying attention to it.
Well, and I know you've recently penned an op-ed, and I appreciate that. But no, actually, it's what you're doing. Like, we could go back and forth here. This op-ed, though, a strategy for advanced drones, other emerging technologies, it's sort of a big umbrella of like just taking control of actually knowing what's going on in our skies. Could you give just sort of a rough outline if you were advising folks on what that strategy might be that could enhance what we're doing?
Yeah, first and foremost, you need adult supervision whose loyalty is to the American people and the president and Congress. And so I proposed a few things. First of all, I think if you have a single belly button, right? So look, proof's in the pudding. You have a Secretary of Defense. You also have now a Director of National Intelligence, right? Well, why not do the same thing for U.S. airspace? Why not create a czar type position, a senior bubba? Because we know that model works, right? Doesn't have to be expensive at all, and actually, it'll save you a lot of money if you do it right, and stop replication of processes throughout the entire government. So you actually save money by doing it. That can coordinate U.S. air domain efforts across the entire spectrum. Anywhere there's U.S. government, military, or civilians, anywhere we should have complete air domain awareness and dominance, which we don't. So you create a czar that's going to be able to give the president an answer to a question, not in 5 weeks or 5 months, but in 5 minutes, and that understands the intelligence community, but also understands the defense community and knows how to work with both of those to get the information needed. Because some of this topic involves intelligence, some of this topic involves national security implications that's not necessarily related to intelligence. And then what that czar should do, which would look at emerging technologies, air domain technologies, would be to report on anything new that we're seeing, right? What is China doing? What is Russia doing? And if it's not Chinese or Russians, then whose is it, right? What are our capabilities? Establish a baseline capabilities between what we call red force and blue force capabilities. So we know, is there a gap in our capabilities versus what, let's say, the Russians or the Chinese have? And then you create a national level strategy, a quadrennial strategy, or maybe even annual strategy for the entire U.S. government on how we're going to tackle this issue of U.S. air domain awareness and emerging technologies, whether it's drone technologies, balloons, missiles, UAP, UFOs, whatever, right? It's getting harder and harder right now to distinguish a drone from a UAP. Why? Because technology is improving, and some of the observables we saw way back when that we couldn't replicate, some of them now, can possibly be replicated with some advanced foreign technologies. And so you have this, you create this strategy that creates milestones and deliverables, enterprise objectives, mission objectives that now people can follow. And then what you have is a czar that reports, as frequently as necessary to the president and directly to the president. And then every month shows up to Congress, whether they like it or not, and said, hey, I'm going to be in this room for an hour and I'm going to give you a briefing on where we are. And if you want it, here I am. Full transparency, come and get it. You're going to get a briefing every month, whether you like it or not. And then you can communicate that to the American people. And then what you do is a town hall. And you do that every maybe month or every 5 months or 6 months, where that head person gets on a YouTube channel, right? Why not? And say, okay, folks, here's where we are. Here's our report card. Here's what we said we were going to do. Here's what we've done. And here's our shortfalls and challenges. And here's what we're going to do before the next time we meet to address those shortfalls and challenges to get you the answers that you deserve, right? It's not rocket science, folks. It's easy. It's just like being a parent, right? You have a kid in school, and what do? You pay attention to the kid, and you help it do its homework, and you communicate, and you talk to them, and help him and her with questions that they may have.
What you're saying is it's perfect timing, though, with the current administration and the current emphasis on disclosure, on efficiency, on all these things. This can be done under this watch. This should be done under this watch.
Yeah. And Troy, look, I'm willing to support anybody who's got the qualifications. Hell, you'd be great at that. I mean, if the administration came to you, Troy, and said, hey, we want you to be the new air domain awareness czar, I would support that. Absolutely. It's not about personalities. It's about having the right people to do the right job.
Agreed. And I think under this mandate and the populace, people want to know, Lou, you and I have talked offline a lot. And the one thing I take away from you is there's that there had been that frustration with what you go through. And it's almost an angst because when you do the right thing, even when no one's looking, sometimes you get a bullseye on your back. And that's what happened with you. But you have come out on the other side, brother. And you are, you really have. You turned out
I'm only 27, Troy.
I know that. Well, all right. I thought you were 30, but that's okay.
I was 6'4" and long blonde hair before I started.
I love you. I love you all the same, man. But I'll tell you that I've watched you progress and from afar, and I think that you are poised to do good things. And I think this administration, Joey, it was really set to probably unleash some things regarding the UAP. Here's the thing. The problem with the drones, for instance, we were talking about over Nebraska, over New Jersey.
Yeah.
There's no threat here. Bull crap. Because if they're in the air and you can't identify and you can't control, that is an air domain threat at any way.
Troy, you're right. In fact, if you're okay with this, Joey, I'd like to give you a little analogy I like to give people who say, well, if we don't know what it is, it's not really a threat. There's a very simple calculus for national security to determine if something is a threat. And you have to look at two things, only two: capabilities versus intent. We've seen some of the capabilities. We have no idea the intent. So the question is something a threat? So let me ask you this, if I can, Joey. I'm sure you live in a wonderful neighborhood. Do you lock your front doors before you go to bed at night?
I do.
And I do too. In fact, I would submit to you, most people do, just out of due diligence and an abundance of precaution. And in fact, you may have people that may take it a step further. Maybe they go and they just make sure that their windows are locked, and right before they go to bed, they punch in their keypad and put their alarm on. Let's say one Sunday morning you wake up, want a cup of coffee, you walk downstairs, and as you're walking down the stairs, you see that there's size 12 muddy boot prints in your living room carpet that were not there the night before. Now, no one's been hurt, nothing's out of place, nothing's been stolen, but despite you locking that front door and checking the windows and turning on the alarm system, there are now boot prints, muddy boot prints in your living room carpet that were not there the night before. My question to you and your audience is that a threat? And my response is, it could be if it wanted to be, so we better figure out how the hell they're getting into the house. Well, the same thing with this topic. We have things that are coming into our controlled U.S. airspace, completely anonymous, being able to do things and interfere with our military capabilities and our nuclear equities that we're not allowing to, that we don't approve of, right? And then being able to perform in ways that we can't replicate. And my question to you is that a threat? Well, it could be if it wanted to be. So why the heck wouldn't you want to figure out what's going on?
Well,
and go ahead.
It's definitely a threat. I'm moving if something like that happens. And it makes a lot of sense what you're saying. Is if you don't understand how it's there or necessarily why it's there, you're playing with fire, and it's something that we should be paying attention to. And it just, I don't know, not to get too into, say, philosophy, but it seems like we could actually have an era of transparency and less secrecy, and that would actually enhance national security, though that might seem counterintuitive to folks, especially folks who've been doing this for a while. If you say, listen to the Senate Intelligence Committee, they seem everything's secrecy, everything's compartmentalized. Would not say a vigorous executive like we're seeing with Trump with, proper transparency might not be everything with the public, but within the government itself, that could actually enhance our national security.
Yeah, and more importantly, it'll also enhance the faith and confidence of the American people in our governmental institutions.
Amen.
Let's not forget that we are at an all-time low until last week of faith and confidence in our government. At an all-time low. Think about that, right? The greatest, most powerful nation on earth, and most Americans believe that they can't trust their own government. Now, my family comes from a place where that was true. My father was in the Bay of Pigs. My family comes from Cuba because we didn't trust our government, right? And because it wasn't a democracy, it was a tyranny. It was a junta. And that is, that's what happens when people lose faith and confidence in their governments and institutions. And so this only works, this great experiment, because we've all decided to invest in it and agree that it works. But when that starts getting eroded, that's a super big national security issue. That's even more important than an external threat is an internal threat.
It's existential. It's an existential threat at that point.
Right, and an existential threat as well. So, we have to take this seriously, and I think the government has to reinstill faith and confidence in itself for the American people, and the American people deserve it. And I think this administration is poised to do just that.
Now, trying to think it through, though, the folks that really still are doggedly like, we don't want to talk, we don't want to even give stuff to Congress. I mean, we just saw it with USAID, and I don't think that's as big as some of the stuff you've been getting into. Trying to think it through, is it almost like the Soviet Union? If you start telling the truth, then the certain institutions just fall apart. Do you think folks are worried as soon as there's sunlight, people start talking, that some of them are toast?
Yeah, there's a lot of liability there for sure. For sure. Look, at the end of the day, people are people. I don't care how senior you are. You still want to keep your job, right? You don't want to be ridiculed and lambasted. And so, there's a lot of selfish motivation there. And there may even be some sub rosa, maybe some criminal issues as well. People are really worried about, hey, if there was some real malfeasance going on and we lied to the American people, more importantly, we lied to Congress, we maybe lied to the president, right? That's a problem, because this administration, as we've seen, is all about accountability. And you just saw with DOGE, right? They're going in and they're man, they got the axe, man. They're chopping the tree down because the roots are rotten. And I kind of agree with that approach. I think at the end of the day, we all have to remain accountable. And if you are in government, you have to remember your sacred oath. You are there to serve the interests of the American people, not the other way around. And we have seemed to forgot that over the last few years, that is really the purpose of government.
Now, on USA or USAID in particular, Troy and I were just talking about it a little bit. I mean, what do you make of that organization?
They're jacked up.
Well, you know what? I would revamp USAID. Look, we need a capability to engage and help impoverished nations in a constructive way. But it's not a free for all. It's not just a bag of money and say, "Oh, here you go," right? Because what happens is we've seen over time and time again, it becomes corrupt. It only goes to a certain group of people for a couple of different types of interests, and it becomes a piggy bank, funded by the American taxpayer. So, accountability is important. And I think transparency, especially in government, should be mandated. And by the way, USAID doesn't have that much classified information. They're not a CIA or an FBI or DOD. So get over it. USAID, you're just there to help. You're supposed to be there to help impoverished nations. You're not there to push an agenda and try to impose some sort of niche belief system in one thing or another. You're not there to take sides. You're there to help empower and promote democracy. And if you're doing anything other than that, you're wrong. And I'm sorry, you're wrong. And you should not be in government. You damn sure should, excuse my language, you darn sure should not be getting any money, taxpayer money, to do so.
When I was with the Corps of Engineers, we worked closely with some USAID projects in the Middle East and CENTCOM area of operations. And I always thought to myself, the State Department should own USAID, which
that's their job.
That just makes sense, right? It just makes sense. I mean, it's their logical nesting place.
Right.
So
And
Rubio's going to do that. Yeah.
And if you need boots on the ground, you have a Peace Corps for
That's
that.
right. That's right.
So
That's right.
What are you doing with this other organization? And by the way, that's just not the only organization.
No, I know.
There's
I know
a
that.
lot of organizations that are bloated and need to be dismantled from the top down. And I applaud that effort to do so. And all these government bureaucrats that are afraid for their jobs, hey man, you should have been involved in that stuff.
They need to be.
I don't know what to tell you. You shouldn't be in the government to begin with. Be thankful you got as high as you did.
That's right.
But the jig is up.
Yeah, and it's fascinating to see certain folks. They don't have to be in the Congress. It could be maybe some talking heads. The one that's most prominently, I think, Bill Kristol. I think people remember from Fox News and Weekly Standard and all that. He seemed to be shrieking about this. And I think people found out pretty quick, well, Bill, aren't you and your organization getting paid by USAID? And so it's just been fascinating to see as DOGE, and it seems like 6 guys who are like 18, 19, 20 years old are just burrowing into, say, the payment systems in HR, and they're finding so much, and we've only just begun. It's only week 2.
Lou can tell you there's a lot out there, isn't there, Lou, that we can burrow into and find. I mean, after you and I worked in the system, it's a joke,
when
man.
Troy and I were over in the Middle East and some of the other garden spots we've been to, the amount of money, sacks full of money. I'll say a friend of mine that was working at USAID and was working with State Department, I'm not going to say the person's name, had told me that we were giving something like $2 million a week to a particular country that was not very consequential to any of our agendas that we were working on. And every country in Africa in particular, we're getting this what I would consider bribery, really. You go ahead and you give a couple people, the heads of state, a big check from the American taxpayer every month, and it's not going anywhere other than filling their pockets. So maybe they'll go ahead and support whatever agenda we may have at some point in the future. It wasn't getting to where it was supposed to go, and they knew it. And that's fraud, in my opinion. You're giving money away knowing that it's not going to where it's going for, and you're still doing it. The accountability was non-existent, and we had seen that over and over and over again, where we were putting money into these weird projects to help, a particular company rather than helping the people and things that matter. And it's very, very frustrating.
Well, we need to hit a quick break here, and we'll keep going with this conversation. Much more we can dive into. Again, folks, we've been talking with Lou Elizondo, and I appreciate Troy Carrico being here too. Before we hit the break, this part of the program brought to you by Bo Goodson and the Goodson Group. And they're at the Goodson Group bonus team, ready to help you if you're looking to buy or sell a home here in the River Region real estate market. But of course, they also have management services available should you want to rent out your home. If you've never managed a property, it could be a pain in the butt. Why not for a reasonable fee? Have the Goodson Group do that for you. And then the crown jewel there is the Bo Goodson Real Estate School, one of the most highly acclaimed real estate programs in the state, because Bo's bringing his 50 years of experience to bear. The good, the bad, and the ugly. He's been through it all. And so you can hit the ground running as a more knowledgeable private player here in this real estate market, or as a fully licensed real estate agent. It's a great way to study up for a licensing test. Y'all check them out today. You can always go to thegoodsongroup.com or give them a call at 551-0225. That's 551-0225. Bo Goodson and the Goodson Group, great sponsor here of the program. We'll be right back.
He may not know whether he's coming or going, but whether you're going to work or coming home, Greg Budell is there. Mornings 6 till 9 and afternoons 3 till 6. Only on News Talk 93.1 FM WACV.
Rich Thomas weather, a service of Wiley Sanders Truck Lines, where over-the-road dump truck drivers are needed right now. Home twice a week and every weekend. Must leave early on Sunday with Blue Cross Blue Shield. Call them now at 855-777-9785.
Our extended winter thaw hangs on. In fact, we'll be teasing record highs for the rest of the week. Upper 70s today with a good bit of sunshine. Should be dry. Partly cloudy. 55 the overnight low tonight. Will be around 80 to 82 Wednesday. The record is 82. Partly sunny. There could be a few showers on the radar Thursday, Friday, maybe over the weekend as well, with highs 80 or above each day, close to record territory. Just amazing stuff in the dead of winter. From the Blue Water Weather Center, this is Rich Thomas.
Hi, this is Bo Goodson with the Goodson Group with your Real Estate Minute. My last message was the report for 2024 real estate market in the River region. According to industry experts, they predict for 2025 we will have more inventory to choose from for our buyers, more buyers for sellers to show their houses to. Here are 5 tips for buyers or sellers in 2025. Number 1, sellers need to price their home at fair market value with the help of your realtor. Number 2, buyers need to be pre-qualified by a local lender prior to shopping for a house to save them time. Number 3, use a certified residential specialist or CRS to purchase or sell your home. Less than 2% of realtors nationwide have this designation. You need an expert now. 4, use someone with 48 years of real estate experience to help you with your largest investment. Number 5, quit waiting. Now's the time to buy or sell. Call Bo Goodson at 221-2883, the Goodson Group, or 551-0225.
Adams Drugs has been committed to the health care of the people of the River region for over 62 years. We value the trust each customer has in our pharmacists, techs, and entire staff. If you have not experienced the difference of Adams Drugs and are not satisfied with the customer service that you get in the big box stores, we invite you to visit any of our locations and see how committed we are to your satisfaction. Adams Drugs offers a variety of services that you will not find in all pharmacies in the River region. Personalized compounding, area-wide delivery, wellness screenings, immunizations, medication consultations, and specialized packaging, just to name a few. Visit us at our website, adamsdrugs.net, and find the location nearest you. Adams Drugs has 12 convenient locations to serve you. Your satisfaction is our #1 goal. Adams Drugs is your local Health Mart pharmacy. Health Mart, taking the time to listen and care.
Are you tired of the mainstream media's biased reporting? Do you want to stay informed on the news that really matters to you? Look no further than 1819 News. At 1819 News, we bring you the latest in Alabama news, politics, sports, culture, and more. We've assembled a team of journalists with Alabama values dedicated to the truth and the truth alone. Visit us at 1819news.com today. That's 1819news.com. Subscribe to our newsletter. Honest News, Alabama Values. This hour of news and views is brought to you by our good friends at Alabama Home Mortgage. Alabama Home Mortgage, 567-4223. Visit them on the web at myalabamahomemortgage.com. NMLS number 1586368. An equal housing lender.
Honey? Yeah? Do you think it's safe using all these extension cords?
Oh, yeah, it's fine.
Actually, too many extension cords can be dangerous. Call Crosby Electric to add new outlets.
Sure is dark in our yard.
Good. We'll sleep better.
Maybe you will.
Crosby Electric does landscaping lighting for beauty and safety, as well as security lighting for peace of mind.
Oh, darn. The vacuum cleaner just tripped a breaker.
Honey, never vacuum while I'm making popcorn.
Tripping breakers can indicate a potential fire hazard. You really should have it checked out by Crosby Electric, serving the River region for almost 50 years.
Sweetheart, are you ever afraid that lightning could damage our electrical system?
Afraid? Oh, come on. No. maybe we should call Crosby. Just give him a call.
Whole house surge protection can protect you and your possessions. For an assessment and for all your electrical needs, call Crosby Electric 272-2085 or visit us at crosbyelectric.com.
This is your roving reporter, and today I am talking with an elk. Hey man, Mr. Elk, I was just wondering, what do elk do to take care of their money? Well, like most smart folks, we call David Ernest. You mean Alabama's most favorite asset preservationist? That's him, man. We call him up at 334-279-7431 or 205-479-0839. I see. Yes, he is our preferred money man. The money man with the money plan. You've been paying attention. Well, could you give us those numbers one more time? 334-279-7431 or 205-479-0839. And I just want to try to give you a heads up, man. Oh, what's that? I'm not an elk. Not an elk, huh? Well, then, pray tell, what are you? Knights of Columbus. I am not even going to make a comment. Well, the baby liked it.
Is your business feeling the heat of cyber attacks? Tired of worrying about ransomware, data breaches, downtime, and employee mistakes? GTI Managed IT Solutions has been your trusted partner since 1999, safeguarding and supporting businesses like yours from the ever-evolving threats in the digital world. GTI, your peace of mind is guaranteed. Call us today at 819-4650 or visit gtinow.com.
The River Region's first and only news talk station on FM. Live, local talk. News Talk 93.1 FM WACV.
Welcome back. Again, we have Lou Elizondo here on the stream with us. Really appreciate the time, Lou. And for folks, we got a lot of folks blowing up the comment section. We already talk radio shows, so if you want to call in, it's 334-272-9228. Again, that's 334-272-9228 if you have a question for Lou here. I kind of have a question. I was thinking about Elon and this whole conversation, and especially as we're looking at advanced technologies, emerging technologies, how much does, say, low Earth orbit play into all this and, say, winning the space race? How important is that to, say, national security?
It's huge. So, look, let me give you an example. There was a time when there was back at the turn of the century, last turn of the century, we were really evolving warfare. And I'll give you an example of what that means. You had this, at one point, there was this general who was going to go ahead and say, I want X amount of dollars to buy X amount of men on cavalry and horseback. And there was this new invention at the time called the tank. And someone said, well, why don't we take some of that money, invest it into a tank? He said, well, for the price of one tank, I can have 10 people on horseback and horses. And so I'd rather have the 10 people on horseback and horses. Why? Because he didn't realize that the face of warfare was about to change, and that technology was upon us that was going to forever change the way we conduct warfare. And of course, with one tank, you can obliterate 100 people on horseback, right? It makes them kind of obsolete. People on horseback at this point. This is why we don't fight on horses anymore.
Polish cavalry in World War II.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, I don't want to call anybody out, but yeah, maybe.
Sorry, that was hard.
So the point being is that there was a time when probably, if you look at the 1950s, there was, in World War II, certainly, there was really only certain types of warfare. You had a ground force, you had an air force, and you had a sea force, right? Navy and Army and a Air Corps. And those were the domains in which we fought. No one ever thought that we would one day fight a virtual war in outer space. Most people couldn't even conceive what that meant, right? And that now what do we have? We have things like Space Force and Space Command, because we realized the domain of warfare has changed to the point where we even have a cybercom. We can now conduct warfare in cyberspace, right? 30 years ago, no one even knew what cyberspace was, and now we're investing billions of dollars, keeping a competitive edge in this space that's not even physical, it's not even real, doesn't exist, and yet it's very important. So when you talk about low Earth orbit, that is going to be the future, continues to be the future of physical competition and for resources and exploration, scientific discoveries, and also warfare. So low Earth orbit is also important. So is mid Earth orbit, MEO. So you have LEO, MEO, HEO, cislunar, a bunch of different. I won't bore you and your audience, but bottom line, that's where the future is. And so whether it's for communication and banking or healthcare or national security, that's the future. And then I think what's equally important, even maybe more important than just talking about things like low Earth orbit, is the transition between domains. So we are. Let's go back to our analogy. We talked about the Navy doing what the Navy does on the water, the Air Force doing what they do in the atmosphere, and the Army does what they do on the ground to plant the flag. But we don't do a really good job in cross domains areas, meaning you have space-based capabilities looking at space, and then you have airspace capabilities looking at air and ground capabilities looking at the ground. But we still have not quite cracked the challenge of that area in between those domains. When something transitions from low Earth orbit into a high Earth atmosphere environment, that's where things get kind of dicey. And that's where you need a better, what we call tipping and queuing capability of our systems. We don't need new systems and we don't need better systems. What we need are systems that can talk to each other. And so the next, I think, frontier and the next challenge for us is being able to integrate the data as something is beginning to move transmedium, because we're now beginning to see a huge investment by our adversaries in transmedium vehicles that, for example, can maybe operate underwater and in our atmosphere, like drone technology, right? That can both swim and fly. We don't do a very good job of really monitoring that area right in between. And so that's another area that I would submit to you, if there was ever a czar position created or a strategy, we need to look at those areas a little bit more.
Now, have you seen, from what you've seen, UAP that have these sort of capabilities, or at least seem to have these capabilities, that we know?
Yeah, there's a lot of reporting on it. It's don't take my word for it. The government, there's copious amounts of documentation that suggests that, and military eyewitnesses. I don't think that's one of the reasons why it's one of the observables for the Pentagon program that I was part of, because transmedium travel is important, and we're seeing that. We're observing that type of characteristic.
Now, I know a new whistleblower has come out, and before we get into some of the details there, what's more worthwhile, do you think? Like, say the government comes out and goes, here's a particular craft, we now understand it, here's full disclosure on it, or is it having more and more people come out who have actually been looking into this stuff? Is more whistleblowers added to the list of people going public? Which is more useful, do you think, of actually informing the public about this?
Yes and yes. Neither one is more or less important. You need both. What you need is a government that's willing to be more truthful and transparent with the American people, and then encouraging people to come forward while not breaking their security oaths, having a conversation to say, look, this is what we're seeing, right? And you don't have to be responsible for an unauthorized disclosure. You don't have to leak classified information, as we're seeing with some of these whistleblowers. Some of these folks are even going through the DOPSR process themselves, which is great. That's what that process is set up to do. I think you need both. It's kind of like asking a child, do you want a mother or a father? Well, can I have both? I kind of need both. That's what I would suggest.
Well, and one part of the latest disclosures that really caught my eye and ear was writing on these crafts. Characters, almost foreign languages. I mean, have you seen this stuff yourself? I mean, what are we talking about here?
Yeah, we actually looked at that. When I was at the ATIP in Pentagon, at the ATIP program, one of the things we kept getting reports on was some sort of script, some sort of glyph, some sort of symbol, rune, whatever you want to call it, on some of these vehicles. Now, that's very important, because, when you say language, the actual root word of language is Latin, from lingua, tongue, right? Spoken word. But written text is also very important, because it's the way that we visually communicate thoughts and ideas with one another, just like when you read a book or you read a newspaper, right? And so when you have something that has some sort of writing on it, or script on it, or engraving on it, there's some things you can assume or presume, if you will, right off the bat. First and foremost, writing is a way to communicate thoughts and ideas. So if you have writing on something, it's because you are trying to communicate an idea to someone. Now, whether that communication is just like, someone who owns a Jeep, if you can read this sign, flip me over because I flipped, the wrong way, or, if you can read this, run away because something bad's about to happen, or phone home for me. But you're communicating a thought or an idea. And then it's also, you can also interpret that as being a visual representation, meaning that somehow that whoever wrote that type of script is using eyes or some sort of visual capability to detect it, because that's how writing works. That's why blind people need Braille, because they can't read, they can't see it, they have to feel it. If you write something, you then have to presume that the person or the thing that's writing it has some sort of visual capability to recognize what that means, right? And then interpret it into a thought, a cogent thought, and an idea. So it means a lot if something has some writing. So what we did at the Pentagon was look at some old examples of prototype writing and ancient human writing to see if we could see any type of correlation between like hieroglyphics or ancient Sumerian cuneiform or anything. Is there anything there that we could look at and recognize and say, yeah. Either that's something we know what that means, or that maybe our own writing was inspired by something. We saw something, and now we're going to use that and adopt that into our own type of way to communicate with one another. It's just one of the many avenues of exploration that were done while we were at the Pentagon.
Well, and it's a world of difference, though. It could be like, if you're this close, you're dead, or it could be like baby on board, or it could be like, hey,
right.
we're your friends. So it's kind of crucial to not have a loss in translation here.
Or it could be like when we were in Iraq, keep 100 meters back or you will be shot.
Yeah, that's right.
Convoy, right?
That's right. Yeah, don't enter here. Don't come
enter
on board.
this dead zone here. Don't get in. Yeah.
So I think it obviously, look, when the Dead Sea Scrolls came out, we spent a lot of time translating those. It's not uncommon, because a lot of times you can find influences in one form of writing that later on over time finds its way in other written languages. You can look at the English language and realize it's really a hodgepodge of Latin, and there's even words from Scandinavian countries that derived and that we now use in common language. For example, the word window, right? It actually comes from the word wind eye, Norwegian, because you could see the wind and wouldn't affect you, right? And the word husband, for example, those words originated in Norwegian, Scandinavian countries. And then you have other words, like we use a prefix of pro, which comes from the Latin word, right? So there's a lot of stuff we borrow from other languages that work its way kind of into our own modern language. And to understand, the roots of that, I think is very important.
Now, so if there are craft with this writing on it, it would signal this is a foreign origin. And I don't necessarily mean extraterrestrial. It could be Earth-based. But that seems like a big confirmation of this is not something known to human civilization.
Right. I mean, look, if you didn't speak English and an F-18 jet, let's say the pilots eject safely and an F-18 jet crashes, on the side, you can see those little spikes with the words intake, right? That tells you that's where the air is going to be intaked into the engine. It could be something just as simple as that. We don't know, but we're not going to know unless we try to find out and explore.
Well, I mean, I find that angle of it incredibly interesting. It's just, is there any other explanation for these sort of markings that's beyond just trying to send like a visual signal and language?
Sure.
It could be actually to the functioning of the craft itself.
Look, we do it all the time. Like Troy. Well, I just said about intake, right? So that's an example of where maybe it's a functional meaning. But look, we're military people, and symbology means a lot. Look at that American flag behind you. What does that mean? Where does it come from? Well, you have 13 stripes representing the 13 original colonies of the United States. Why is it red and white? Well, to show you that, the blood that's spilled, but also the innocence and the purity. And what's this 50 stars for? Well, the 50 stars represent the 50 states. It's not a direct communication. It's a symbol that represents an idea.
And another thing is, and I'll take it even more basic, Lou. What's on all of our bumpers? What's on the front and back of all of our bumpers on a military vehicle? It's got a unit designation, second ACR-12.
Right.
That could be internal markings for their own fleet and things of that nature. So
absolutely, it could be an operational necessity for for deconfliction. It could be all sorts of things. But at the end of the day, you're communicating a thought through representation, and that's very important. Just like we do with Sanskrit, for example, and all the other forms of writing that we have done as a species over time.
Now, you brought up the apocryptical text and the Dead Sea Scrolls. You're going to have to come back on for a show, and we're going to get into that about this, because that is the books of Enoch, the books of Solomon and Jubilee, very powerful stories of our history, and something to talk about. So,
well, it looks like we have a call that's come in here.
Right.
Let's go to Papa B. You're on air. How you doing, Papa B?
This is just so interesting. I'm telling you, man. Guess we're going to find out that we're not alone in this solar system or galaxy, I suppose. So anyway, we'll figure it out as we go. But I do have a couple of questions. What, if you know anything about it, is the Looking Glass? What, for heaven's sakes, is Alice in Wonderland? What is the Gateway Experience? What are all these alternate universe things going on in our society? Do you know, and can you tell me anything about them?
Okay, so let me see if I can dissect this.
Good question.
As far as Alice in Wonderland and the Looking Glass, that's really an analogy for realizing the current paradigm in which we live. Our current understanding of reality is actually probably not a complete or comprehensive model of what's really going on. And so let me give you an example. We are human beings. We have 5 fundamental senses by which we judge everything in our universe. And if you can't touch it, taste it, hear it, smell it, etc., it doesn't exist. The reality is, though, the universe is far more complex and far bigger than that. And so let me give you an example. The way in which we look at the universe, observe, we were just talking about ancient writing, is through something we call through visible light, the electro-optical spectrum. And everything we see, whether it's a beautiful sunset or it's a pretty wedding, or the grotesqueness and absurdity of warfare, is all captured in that very narrow spectrum we call electro-optical spectrum. But the electro-optical spectrum, when compared to the greater electromagnetic spectrum, the real, if you will, the frequencies of the universe, is only 0.0063%, meaning, and it might even be less, meaning that 99.996 something percent of the universe actually lies outside of our ability to perceive it. So, for example, I live here in Wyoming with beautiful unoccluded skies. If you look at a night sky, you see all these beautiful stars and satellites. But the reality is, if you look at that same part of the night sky through a radio telescope, and now you start seeing an X-ray, and ultraviolet, and infrared, you see an entirely different reality around you. You see nebulous clouds, and you see things that the human eye doesn't normally pick up. Just like a honeybee, when it's going to a flower, it's looking at ultraviolet. We can't perceive it, but it can. And so we have to understand that most of the universe lies beyond our ability to directly perceive it. And that's just using electro-optical as an example, right? So most of the universe is hard for us to detect. We have to create machines, technology to help us interface and understand and collect information on the real realities of our universe, which are largely invisible. As far as going into alternate realities and universes, one only has to look at some of the fundamental theories of quantum physics to realize that, yes, we live in a multi-dimension universe. It's hard for us to understand because as human beings, we live in a 3-dimensional space. You have an x-axis, a y-axis, and a z-axis. You can go up and down, left and right, and forward and backwards. And we experience the 4th dimension as a function of time. But time is not really experienced 3-dimensionally like space. It's more linear, right? We tend to say, well, I'm experiencing life now, I live in the present, and I'm looking towards the future, and the past is the past. But we now realize that's not really entirely accurate, because space and time, as we know through Einstein, are inextricably tied. You can't have one without the other. Space and time are together, and space and time is flexible. In fact, if you look at a satellite, a GPS satellite, and you take that atomic cesium clock that is on that satellite, on that spacecraft, and compare it to the exact same atomic cesium clock with the exact same atomic half-life and decay on the ground station, you have a phenomenon called atomic drift, meaning time is literally going by at a different rate up in space than it is on Earth, because the mass of Earth is perturbing, warping space-time. So we know space-time is flexible. And as a result, we have to look at the universe a little bit differently now. It's not linear. There are shortcuts to space and time. There's things that we can do that we have observed that space and time may not even be an issue. So for example, look at quantum entanglement, where you have two quantum particles that are inextricably tied to one another. And whether I separate them by an inch, I separate them by a mile, or I separate them by 13.5 billion light years, there is some form of instantaneous communication occurring between the two, where the physical three-dimensional space and time doesn't even seem relevant. It's another reason why now a lot of chemistry folks are discussing in quantum mechanics. When I was going to school, I learned that the atomic model was basically the nucleus of an atom and an electron orbiting the atom. We now realize that model is completely wrong. What's actually happening, we have something called an electron cloud. And the current speculation by some is that the electron is so small, so tiny, that it can actually zip in and out of existence through the very fabric of space-time, like a bed sheet. Think of something so small that it can actually weave itself through the very fabric between the threads of the bed sheet. And we now realize that the electron, we can never predict exactly where it is, because it's both there and not all at the same time. So these are really hard concepts for human beings to really grasp, but we're beginning to realize that really seems to be the way the universe works.
Well, I got to hit this top of our break. I appreciate the call, Papa B, and I want to keep going after the break with this sort of theme, especially not just maybe we don't fully understand, say, physics as completely as we might, that would give us different ways to view the universe, but maybe we don't understand ourselves, say the capacity of our brains, of what is our consciousness. I know that is a old philosophical, theological argument that goes back millennia. And so I want to go in that direction, but especially in your experience with sort of the remote viewing with folks who...
I knew that was coming.
Well, and also folks who have encountered these UAPs and had sort of brain injuries and odd things happen to them. And we'll keep going in that direction after this break, folks. We'll be right back.
Broadcasting from the Riverside Chevrolet Master Control Center, this is WACV Cusana, News Talk 93.1 FM. When it's Chevy, it's Riverside.
With SRN News, I'm John Scott. The U.S. has a new Secretary of Veterans Affairs. The U.S. Senate confirming Doug Collins to the job, putting the former congressman in charge of care for Americans' veterans. Collins is an Iraqi war veteran and has promised to cut regulations and elevate the quality of care for veterans. The Department of Veterans Affairs oversees nearly 200 medical centers and hospitals nationwide. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio says El Salvador's president has offered to accept deportees from the U.S. of any nationality, including violent American criminals now imprisoned in the U.S. A U.S. official said the Trump administration had no plans to try to deport American citizens, but that the offer was significant. On Wall Street, the Dow had 145 points, the Nasdaq adding 243. This is SRN News.
Hi, everyone. If you've been injured in an accident that was not your fault, listen up. We have legal professionals standing by to answer your questions for free. Call now and find out if you have a case and how much it's potentially worth. Call 800-504-8790. I'm here with spokesman John Wolf. So, John, tell everyone listening who should call right now.
Well, Maria, first off, thank you for having me here. It's always nice to answer the listeners' questions. Now, as far as who should call in, anyone who's been injured in an accident and think you deserve compensation, give us a call right now. 800-504-8790. You'll find out if you have a case and how much it's potentially worth.
Thanks, John. You heard it, folks. Take advantage of this opportunity and call now. 800-504-8790.
Advertisement sponsored by Legal Help Center, may not be available in all states.
The Rich Thomas Weather Network, brought to you by Montgomery Paint and Body. From little fender benders to total body repair, MPB will fix it good as new, maybe better. For 4 decades, the Turner family has been getting you back on the road. Call 279-7325.
Our extended winter thaw hangs on. In fact, we'll be teasing record highs for the rest of the week. Upper 70s today with a good bit of sunshine, should be dry. Partly cloudy, 55. The overnight low tonight will be around 80 to 82 Wednesday. The record is 82. Partly sunny, There could be a few showers on the radar Thursday, Friday, maybe over the weekend as well, with highs 80 or above each day, close to record territory. Just amazing stuff in the dead of winter. From the Blue Water Weather Center, this is Rich Thomas.
Budget Floors and More is your low price leader for everything you need for flooring and DIY flooring installation supplies. For the best prices on luxury vinyl plank, carpet, ceramic tile, flooring installation supplies, and more, shop Budget Floors and More, Hunter Lane across from Del Rey to Publix.
1819 News.
Governor Ivey has appointed Ashley Siebert to be the next district judge for Baldwin County. Siebert will be part of the 28th Judicial Circuit Court. She's a graduate of Auburn University as well as the Thomas Good Jones School of Law in Montgomery. Siebert will replace retiring district judge Michelle Thomason. I'll be back with more Alabama stories after this.
Some of the greatest blessings is just having people that care about you, to have someone that's just going to love you and make you feel important. They encourage you to be in church. They encourage you to be in prayer. They encourage you to be in your Bible. Now it's a part of my day every day. My house parents planted seeds in me that you can see where those seeds have sprouted in my life and helped change my life.
Big Oak Ranch, a Christian home for children needing a chance.
State Senator Arthur Orr is confident that state lawmakers will be taking a look at the operations of the only school in the state created for LGBTQ students. Orr is the chairman of the Senate Education Budget Committee and spoke with Dale Jackson on WVNN out of Huntsville. Orr says there's been a lot of concern expressed by state lawmakers over the Magic City Acceptance Academy and its continued refusal to follow the new state laws about teaching divisive concepts.
They have, they're not going by the letter of the law that was passed, and it's something we're going to have to deal with. Now, what's the best way to go about that? We'll have to figure it out, but they are definitely in the sights.
And the founding pastor of the Church of the Highlands, Chris Hodges, is retiring as senior pastor and going to work to grow the Highlands College, which is located outside of Birmingham. Hodges has been the head pastor at the Church of the Highlands for 24 years. It was founded on February 4th, 2001. I'm Andrea Tice.
For more news affecting Alabamians, go to 1819news.com. And while you're there, subscribe to the daily newsletter.
This hour of News and Views is brought to you by our good friends at Cole Plumbing, 279-8919. Cole Plumbing is number one in the number two business. You don't have to dig a hole. They have proprietary pipelining technology. Ask them about their tankless water heaters. Remember, when you have trouble with your bowl, call on Cole.
I'm Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I learned about atrial fibrillation the hard way. My symptoms would come and go, shortness of breath, fatigue. I kept going. Then I got so lightheaded, I couldn't. My doctor said I have AFib, so I'm about 5 times more likely to have a stroke. Other symptoms, irregular heartbeat, heart racing, chest pain can come and go, but the risk of stroke stays. If you have symptoms, tell a doctor. Visit NoTimeToWait.com.
Sponsored by Bristol-Myers Squibb and Pfizer.
The views and opinions of the following program are solely those of the host and other contributors. These do not necessarily represent those of Liberty Acquisitions 825, Blue Water Broadcasting, its management, staff, or any advertisers.
This is your roving reporter, and today I am talking with an elk. Hey man, Mr. Elk, I was just wondering, what do elk do to take care of their money? Well, like most smart folks, we call David Ernest. You mean Alabama's most favorite asset preservationist? That's him, man. We call him up at 334-279-7431 or 205-479-0839. I see. Yes, he is our preferred money man. The money man with the money plan. Now, you've been paying attention. Well, could you give us those numbers one more time? 334-279-7431 or 205-479-0839. And I just want to try to give you a heads up, man. Oh, what's that? I'm not an elk. Not an elk, huh? Well, then, pray tell, what are you? Knights of Columbus. I am not even going to make a comment. Well, the baby liked it.
This is how you conduct yourself in a democracy?
Joey Clark.
Oh, welcome back to the program. Continuing the conversation here with Lou Elizondo, and I really do appreciate how generous you've been today with your time, Lou, and this conversation is, I think, turning now more into stuff that more folks, I think, will find strange. Because I tested out on family members and whatnot, and the UAP thing, they're listening, especially if they've been involved in aerospace, and like, okay, that makes sense. If I bring up remote viewing with some of these folks, they look at me like I have a third eye or maybe something else. Tell the audience here about your experience with the remote viewing programs, and what exactly is going on with these things.
Back in the late 60s and early 70s, the U.S. government was trying to find a competitive advantage on collecting intelligence on her adversaries, and it turns out that we had information that the Russians had a program where they were using psychics to try to conduct espionage against the United States. And people can poo-poo it all day long, but right now, even here in the United States, law enforcement agencies will employ psychics to solve murders, and they have, and they've actually found the remains of people that nobody else could find. Right, so there seemed to be some sort of initial data to suggest that maybe there's something to it. So the U.S. government had created a program. One of the godfather, if you will, of remote viewing was a gentleman named Dr. Hal Puthoff. Stanford as well, researcher, and also worked for the intelligence community. And so he created a program that later became what is now known as Stargate. Before that, though, it had many other names like Grill Flame and a bunch of other names before operational names. It was basically a program for the U.S. government to train psychic spies and how to conduct espionage. And the name of that was called remote viewing. The application of that is called remote viewing. Now, people say, "Oh, that's a bunch of hooey." Well, look, let's not forget that the human brain is infinitely complex, and you only have to go to your local hospital and go into the trauma ward and see. Whenever we want to determine if someone is technically brain dead, we look for the brain waves of a human being. We know that human beings and other animals give off brain waves. Those brain waves are really bioelectric and chemical reactions occurring in the brain, and it gives off an electrical signal, and we can detect that, and you can determine if someone is alive or dead. So the fact that the brain transmits information and transmits electromagnetic signals is not up for conjecture. It's a fact. We know that. And then you can look at other species and look at, like, when two dogs enter a room and realize immediately they never met each other, there's some sort of weird nonverbal communication occurring, that something is happening, some process is happening. I think the real crux of the question is we're getting into what is this related to human consciousness and what is it, right?
Yeah.
I think we can say scientifically that there's something going on. And it's probably, in my opinion, more related to quantum entanglement and quantum physics than it is, paranormal. In fact, it may not be anything new at all. It may be something that we, as basic human beings, have had this capability for a very long time, as a survival capability. Before we had the advancement of human language that now allows us virtually to articulate thoughts and ideas instantly around the world using these, devices like computers and cell phones and things like that. If you lived in your cave with your tribe or your people, and you venture outside, chances are if you come across another human being, you wouldn't be able to communicate very well. You wouldn't speak the same language, right? So maybe there's been some sort of way that Mother Nature has allowed us to evolve where we can still communicate to some degree using nonverbal communication. And so that idea was looked at by the U.S. government, and there were several programs paid by taxpayer money. And people can argue all day long, but it was very effective. Look, there was an incident where a Russian supersonic jet had crashed in Africa, and despite our best airborne and spaceborne capabilities, and Russians too, they couldn't find their own airplane, and we couldn't find it. So we had a couple remote viewers look at it, and they pinpointed exactly where it was. Right. So we can argue all day long. Well, it's a bunch of hooey. No, it's not. We just don't understand how it works. But it's probably a very, very basic scientific principle. So as far as my involvement, it was very tangential in the very early days. I wound up later becoming part of a program that Troy knows a lot about, which was early on called the Great Skills Program, which, by the way, for the record, you don't have to be great and you don't have to have a lot of skill for. So
not so great skills.
Yeah, that was kind of a way, I guess, to sucker young guys like us to get in the program.
Right.
You realize, well, wait a minute.
That'll attract people.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah. But the reality is that the U.S. government's been involved in this type of effort for a very long time, and so have some of our adversaries. And so, if you can get any type of competitive advantage over your adversaries, then why wouldn't you employ that, right? So, my involvement was very early on. I was recruited by a gentleman named Eugene Lessman. He was probably at the time the Army's top remote viewer. At the time, I did not even know what remote viewing was. I had no idea why they were even asking me. And he had put me through some exercises, and I remember for a while we had this communication back and forth, and then finally, long story short, the program finally died, like officially and formally. All the funding was finally taken, and so I was kind of chucked back into the pool of resources, human resources, and given a different assignment. I never learned what purpose they wanted me to be. I came at the very tail end, and I wasn't particularly a good remote viewer. It was enough where I could, I think, I understood it and I could experience it, but there was folks there. There's famous people like Joe McMoneagle and Ingo Swann who are far more talented than I could ever be. It was just a small chapter in my life, but it was interesting from a scientific perspective because it allowed me to experience something. It's like, for example, PTSD. I never understood PTSD until I experienced it. And then all of a sudden, wow, okay, so that's what that is about. Now I can understand it because I had to personally experience it. And the same thing with remote viewing. I think human consciousness is something that is very little understood. I'll give you case in point right now, if you don't mind. And I want to ask you not a rhetorical question. Do you have any children or any family, loved ones?
I have no children, but I do have loved ones, yes.
Okay. And you do love them, I'm presuming?
Yes.
Okay, so if I ask you to prove it, how would you do it?
Just have to take my word for it. You can't.
That's right. And how do you know that the way I feel love? Because I'll tell you, my daughters are the greatest achievement and accomplishment of my life. But how can I convince you the way that I love my daughters is the same way that you love your loved ones? I can't.
You can't.
And yet we all experience it, right? We all know it's real, and yet maybe our definitions might differ slightly between each other. But when you're with a loved one and they love you, you feel it. There's this nonverbal communication that is occurring, this bond, right? And it's probably part of our evolution. It's probably not just humans. It's probably something that may even be part of our reptile brain, right? Our lizard brain when we were walking around on, scurrying on the floor, because the primates have it. We see that primates have this ability, and the great apes, to interact with one another, and they have this human emotion and feelings, right? That is probably related somehow to consciousness, sentience, being aware of. I have 5 German Shepherds, and I love them, and they all have human names. Why? Because we look at everything through anthropomorphic views, right? And so there is this communication that occurs. They're not telling me, but I know when they're hungry. I know when they want to lay in bed with us. I know when they want to go outside. I know when they want to play. Why? Because they're communicating. There's this weird communication that's occurring between two different species. Can you imagine that for a second? Species now, right? And most people who've had pets will tell you the same thing. Like, I can tell when a loved one's not feeling good. Is that possibly related to this idea of remote viewing? Quite possibly. It may just be an ability for the brain to transmit signals. And if we know the brains do transmit signals, why? Because we can put monitors to the brain and see when there's electrical signals going on. Do people develop also the skill to receive and interpret those signals? Just like a radio, right? A radio isn't smart. The radio just does what it does. There's a little crystal in there that receives the frequency and then translate it to a sound, and we hear it, as a radio program. But in reality, it's just an interpretation of an electromagnetic signal, and that interpretation, just like it occurs on a phone or a computer, may be occurring in a human's brain.
Well, and on a practical level, I think at the end of the day, does it work is a question I would ask. And it sounds like if it does work, okay, let's keep using it and maybe examine why this is going on. And when you bring up the concept of love, I guess, going back to my 12 years in Catholic school, excuse me, I guess it's the will the good of the other. But then it gets even more interesting when you say love God. It's not even like a person. And it's easy to describe love, I think, when you lose somebody. Like maybe it's a pet, or if it's more extreme, I've lost my mother, saw her go through brain cancer, and it's almost like you lose a part of you. And it's not like my hand was cut off, but it's almost like an external conscience was removed. And it's those sorts of things where it becomes imprinted in you in a way you can't even describe. Like, how could a painting ever describe the artist that made it? And it's those sorts of connections that are hard to explain. But you mentioned they put you through some exercises. Like, could you describe maybe some of those exercises?
Yeah, they it was a lot more formalized back then. So they had this kind of regiment. The Army actually had a manual at one time on remote viewing, believe it or not. It might even be publicly available now. It was classified at one point. But there's an Army field manual on how to remote view, and they have field lands, right? NFM, and they talk about the use of ideograms and things that you can do exercise to kind of get yourself in a meditative state, right? And by the way, I was never good at meditation, so ideograms never worked for me. But you would go through exercise, and then what you'd have this person they would call a monitor. Basically, it's kind of like a buddy of yours holding your hand, and they would walk you and say through some scenarios and say, okay, so they'll read off some grid coordinates. You don't have a map in front of you. You have no idea where these are, and they say, okay, what comes to mind? And you start getting these pictures, almost like looking at snapshots. Sometimes they're really sharp. Sometimes they're kind of out of focus. I found, to me and many others as well, the greatest challenge to remote viewing is ourselves. The human brain is an incredible organ. It can do things that are almost supernatural. So let me give you an example of that. We look at patterns. Everything we see in our world, we're used to seeing patterns. And part of that's probably because of our evolution. When we were babies, one of the first things we recognize is our mother's voice, and we recognize the shape of her face and her smile, and that's how we identify between friend or foe, right? It's also potentially related to other things that we look at where we recognize patterns. Why people look at a popcorn ceiling and all of a sudden see faces that aren't really there, but the brain puts together an image, right? Because it's innate in us. But at the same time, that is done for a very specific reason, because the brain is constantly taking so much stimulation in that it has to have a filter. Otherwise, we tend to get overwhelmed. And so what happens is, while we're having this conversation, if I know someone's mowing the lawn outside and I hear someone mowing the lawn, I almost don't hear it. We still have this conversation. But if I hear at the same decibel a gunshot or a backfire, that might get my attention. You might see me go, whoa, what's that? Why? Because it's breaking the pattern. It's something that's standing outside the normal routine that my brain has calculated and said, okay, this is the normal ambiance, this is normal noise, normal background. The problem is when remote viewing is the brain always wants to put together the data that you're remote viewing. And so you have to avoid that temptation, because as you might start remote viewing something where you see metal bars crossing and rivets and you say, oh, that's a bridge. No, actually it might be a gantry crane, right? But the brain is automatically jumping to a conclusion. So you really have to avoid that temptation. And how you avoid that is by having a really good monitor that can explain to you and walk you back and say, look, when you were doing this, what were you feeling? And so, well, I was feeling X, Y, Z. I say, okay, well, from now on, ignore that, because that was a false signal. And then when you are on target, perhaps I'll say, okay, what were you feeling? So, well, I was feeling A, B, and C. I say, okay, well, that was good because you're on target. That's a positive signal. You're what they call a signal line. And by the way, I know it sounds like crazy mumbo jumbo, but you can read the Army Field Manual. These are all terms that have been accepted at one point by the U.S. government as being legitimate terms to describe intelligence collection capabilities using this weird, you might call it psychic phenomenon.
Well, a lot of this makes sense to me, though, in the sense that we don't see the entire world. We couldn't process all the data, so your brain creates almost these models and patterns that recognize. And if something unusual, say, shows up in your room, you're all of a sudden going to be freaked out. And I play guitar, so I'm thinking of like really great guitar players. They all talk about how at a certain point in their playing, they're not even thinking, and they sort of let that improvising come to them and let it flow over.
Right. That's right.
You know, Lou, you told me that what it was like when Dr. Peter Venkman in Ghostbusters was testing those kids in the laboratory and shocking them Sorry, you're wrong. Remember that? That's really what's
it
going
is,
on.
but
That's what I thought happened. Okay.
Yeah, it's like classic Pavlovian conditioning, except for not actually happening. They're being a little more gentle with you.
Great way to meet women.
Yeah. So there was one incident, though, and maybe you remember, I believe that we used remote viewing to map out an embassy that we were trying to get intel on. I know, and I want to say it might have been the Iranian embassy.
Actually, we also did it to a very sensitive installation, government installation, and the FBI actually launched an investigation. Yeah, because they're like, hey, what's going on here?
Yeah.
And they had to be shown and proven that, look, no one's actually breached the outside. This is something that we're doing in the intelligence community. There's lots of examples of that, actually.
And this seems to somewhat wrap around to people that have encountered UAPs where they have particular brain injuries or experiences that seem almost psychic at certain points, right?
Yeah, there's several scientists we had and that continue to work, actually, medical practitioners and researchers that have suggested that there is a part of the brain called the quadrate putamen that gets affected, and they actually have MRI images showing before and after images of human beings who've allegedly come close and personal to a UAP. These are military service members, intelligence officials, and it was a big study. And you can actually see a significant change in morphology of that part of the brain, and that part of the brain has also been speculated to be responsible for things like human precognition.
Oh, fascinating.
It's not a stretch either. What about astral projection? I mean, if we can remote view, we can astrally project too.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. It depends how you. No, I mean, look, people experience very weird things, and the Bible's full of examples of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And not just the Bible, the Bhagavad Gita, and the Torah, and even the Quran, and a lot of religions.
Upanishads.
They recognize this, and so. People can poo-poo it all you want, but we as a species have been dealing with this phenomenon for millennia.
Well, and then are you aware of anything the government doing, like using, say, psychedelics, where you're sort of trying to find altered states of consciousness, but say people are corroborating they're seeing the same things, and it could get complicated, I know, because it could be social contagion, that if it's in the, say, ether of commentary and discourse, you're going to kind of be influenced to see a certain thing. But are you aware of experiments like that going on?
DMT.
Yeah, sadly, unfortunately, we did it without people's
permission,
knowledge and permission. The CIA had a program called MK Ultra. Some call it the electrocholic acid test, which was kind of somewhat related. Where what we did is we supplied LSD unbeknownst to individuals, and then monitor them and see how they would behave and what it would do. And some of it to very catastrophic consequences. Look, we've done some things that the government, hasn't always been proud of. People think that the government's always been kind of squeaky clean. The reality is, look, and I love my government, but the reality is that we've done some pretty heinous things in the past, and Congress had to get involved. And again, another case in point was the syphilis experiments, where we allowed individuals to go through the entire life cycle of syphilis. Even though we had a cure for it, we didn't administer it, and individuals died just so we could research the effects of it, right? So there was a report that just came out last week, I think, about the CIA plan to blow up a U.S. military boat in the harbor of Havana so we could blame the Cubans and use it as a predicate for war. Now think about that, murdering innocent Americans just for a political agenda, and it was that operation was approved. Now, it wasn't ever implemented, but it was approved. Now, anybody who says that the governments in plural are never capable of doing anything like that, they have, and they are. And so this is why we need transparency in our government. This kind of goes back to our original conversation, about an hour and a half ago, about having transparency in our government and accountability. This is ultimately, people don't realize the efforts of DOGE, in a very extreme form at some point down the road, could be responsible for stopping, future experiments like this, because they're forcing government accountability, into projects that have been classified for way too long for no real good reason.
The syphilis experiments happened right down the road from here in Tuskegee. So it's very near and dear here. Real fast, too. This is one that disturbs me the most. 1953 to 1956, the Department of Energy and Department of Defense radiated low-dose gamma radiation in school milks in the Minneapolis and St. Paul school district over a protracted period for the kids in public school so they could test the low-dose fallout of radiation. And I think what a horrible story. I mean, thousands and tens of thousands of kids affected. And I'd like to see what the cancer incidents and stuff were afterwards, but very disturbing thought.
Right. So this is what happens when you have a few people go rogue in an organization or an institution or a government
about that.
without proper oversight. Right. And this is, I think, what we all agree that's heinous. There's no excuse for that. And so, I'm extremely optimistic. I believe sunlight sometimes is the best antiseptic. Transparency. I do believe that there are things that we have to keep secret, but not for the purposes of trying to cover up malfeasance or something embarrassing, but for the purpose because there's a real reason we don't want our adversaries to get their hands on it, but not because we don't want to admit it to the American people. I'm completely against those reasons for the abuse of the classification system.
Well, and for the longest time, more corporate media, when they still had a control of the discourse and conversation, would do this game of, well, the CIA once did this thing, but they don't do anything like that now. Like, that's crazy to talk or suspect anything like that now. And I wonder, even if it's not heinous, even if it isn't abusing people, what sort of things are coming up? Because the things that are available publicly are sort of expanding what we think about how our consciousness works. For instance, I think you've cited this, the Neuralink, initial implants that have been put in for paraplegics and whatnot. It's pretty remarkable that interfacing with electronics, you're doing things that seem like straight out of science fiction.
Absolutely. Think about the reality which is upon us, where a human being who cannot use their arms or legs has the ability to play a video game and beat people who are professionals who've been playing video games using their fingers and their hands for years. Now, with a simple implant in the brain, has the ability to outperform those individuals.
Could somebody pilot a drone that way?
Absolutely. I mean, DARPA has for a long time, I won't say exactly when, has done studies where you can put a helmet on somebody and literally fly a drone using thought processes. But again, let's not forget that interface has always been something that we've always recognized. The Russians had something called the Psychotronic Weapons Development Program, where they were trying to do exactly that, create some sort of interface between the human cognition and brain processes to affect matter. And whenever you go to a hospital, as I just mentioned earlier on your program, we know when someone's alive because we can monitor brainwave activity, right? So if you can monitor brainwave activity, then you can also interpret brainwave activity to do certain things. And that's exactly what Neuralink is doing.
Well, I love it. And I kind of want to end this way, a little bit more down to earth. And I would kick it to both of y'all. And I asked you this, I think, last week, Troy.
What was it?
Should the drug cartels in Mexico be worried with this new administration? And what might we be able to do to them?
Lou and I have both worked counter-narc missions big time. So
absolutely.
You go first, big boy.
Okay, here's my take. And it's going to probably be very unpopular, but I'm just going to tell you exactly how I feel. I don't negotiate with terrorists. I think there was a deal that was done by Trump to say, look, if you don't get control of your borders, we're going to tariff the heck out of you, right? So what does Mexico do? Okay, we're going to put 10,000 troops on the border. What does a drug cartel do in response to that? They say, well, we're going to go ahead and start targeting your border patrol agents with drones and explosives and sharpshooters. My response is, if you start attacking my people on my land, I'm going to invade. Let's not forget, we like to do things too. Let's not forget Afghanistan and Iraq, and that was over there. So if you think you're going to declare war on us here, buddy, that will not turn out well for you. If the American people feel that we are really under threat and you start killing Americans who are just trying to do their job, all I got to say is that's on you. We have a track record. We have no problem exercising violence in defense of our people. And I'm the first one to tell you, I'll go right back and do it. If my country says, hey, we are under attack, that's an act of war, you're not going to win that. I mean, according to Lou, what I would do is say, look, I'm going to come in there. I'll make sure you never do this again. I'll own Mexico and I'll call it New Texas. That's what I will do. So please don't put us in that position, because we don't want to do that. We don't want to have a conflict. You are our neighbors. We love you. We are partners in this together. We both can agree that fentanyl is a scourge and it's killing Americans. And if you think it's okay, then you're going to have to readjust your thought process on this, because we will not allow it. We will not stand by for this, and we're not going to allow you to continue to break our laws to do that. And if you think you're going to be able to do what you think you're going to do through violence, look, we got a long history of exercising our perspectives when we have to. And that would be my reminder to the cartel. Look, I wouldn't want to pick a fight with the cartel. And part of the problem is that, we are supporting it because we have our own problem internally. They are supplying it because there's a demand internally within the United States. That's not the cartel's problem. That's our problem, right? So we've got to do a better job too, cleaning up our own house. But when you start targeting law enforcement officials on the border that are just doing their job, that's a whole different story. The way I look at it, that's an act of war. And there will be very severe and very significant consequences for doing it. Just like we don't target Mexican federales doing their job on the Mexican border, we shouldn't have anybody targeting our men and women in uniform just doing their jobs.
So when the federales can't police their own area, or they're corrupt, then we are forced to there's two types of crazy. A guy gets drunk and takes his clothes off and howls in his front yard. The other is guy gets drunk, takes his clothes off, and does it in your front yard. You're kind of forced to deal with it, right? And the thing about it is, this because you've been there and I've been there. The war on drugs, is probably the biggest waste of money this government spends. I'm going to be honest with you.
I agree.
I'm very much, I have very libertarian views on this. Look, if you...
Yeah, you want to put a hammer to your head, but I'm not paying for it. Exactly.
I know, but my thing is, if you're going to incarcerate people for possession, I mean, you're running families, you're running jobs. Re-educate, rehabilitate, and move it into that positive direction, like you said. Well, but here's the thing.
There's also a disjointed approach. Let's be real. Let's have the honest conversation. Yeah. Alcohol, which destroys family. People get behind the wheel of a car and they kill each other, right? Or they go to a bar and they raise hell and shoot each other, right? And kids are now, parents are incarcerated, and you have this alcoholism that's rampant. And what do? Well, we have commercials for it on the Super Bowl, right? And yet something else, we pick and choose what's going to be our enemy du jour. Well, in this case, alcohol is okay, and you can smoke cigarettes, which causes cancer, but this other thing over here, we don't want you doing. I tend to take a more view of, look, you're responsible for yourself. And if you do something stupid, you're going to pay those consequences.
That's right.
I'm not going to pay my taxpayer dollars trying to constantly police you and trying to tell you how to live your life. And at the end of the day, if you destroy your life, then the state will come in and make sure those around you are protected and take care of you. But I'm not going to sit there and nanny you to death and saying you have to behave this way or that way. I think we're all adults here, and I think we do have to recognize the war on drugs is really we're not taking enough responsibility internally for our own consumption and appetite for something that some other business person is just simply supplying the products for. That's why I was saying with the cartels, my beef with the cartels isn't supplying the drugs, even though I think it's morally apprehensible and wrong and terrible. We are the other part of that equation. We have an appetite for it. So they're just providing a service that people in the United States demand. My issue with the cartels is when they hurt innocent people in the process of doing that transaction in a way, like, for example, law enforcement officials just doing their job. That's don't do that. You can't blame Americans for that. That's stepping way over the bounds.
And I told Joey goes, what do you think about this? And there was a dude on CNN, former quote SEAL. He says, "Oh, we don't want to pick that fight. It's going to get ugly." Let me tell you something. I was a Ranger. Okay, I can tell you this: we could unleash hell in a hurry on any objective we want, and we could totally annihilate the New Jalisco cartel, all that new generation, all of them. Ass-kicking violence solves problems. It solves problems.
That's true.
And we got that.
And we've understood that. Look, a couple of warheads on foreheads, and the problem's solved. I hate to say that. I don't want to be, nasty about it, but
it's the truth.
At the end of the day, I'm always the kind of person who believes, walk softly, carry a big stick. I always try to give people the benefit of the doubt. And if I'm at a bar and someone recognizes me, and they're drunk and they want to fight, I'm the first person to back down and say, "Hey, man, I want no problem. We buy you another beer. I know you can kick my butt. You're right. I'm a wimp." And that is until I can't back out of it anymore.
Right.
And then when the other side comes out and we do what we have to do, like guys like Troy and myself and others that we know, do what we have to do. And at that point, we're no longer negotiating. Now it's on my terms, and now you're going to have to understand.
You're going to understand pain. It's a wonderful motivator.
And I think President Trump was showing off the big stick with that strike against ISIS in Somalia. And then I would say this announcement, the deal with El Salvador, is a huge message. I think not just to say immigrants, illegal migrants that they're going to send back, but I think it's a message to the cartels. Look what El Salvador already did to their gang problem. You might end up in the same place.
If USAID were support anything, put money in that prison.
There you go.
That's what I would do. I'd be okay with that.
I like that idea.
You want to put some money in something? Build a few more of those types of prisons.
Yeah.
You have my vote for that.
And by the way, folks, as we were talking, Tulsi got through committee, which is beautiful, and RFK earlier today as well. That's awesome. Hopefully Kash Patel. I appreciate the time today, Lou. This flew by, and I really do appreciate your insight and you just spending some time with us.
Well, it's always my honor and privilege. And, I've said this before. Troy is really one of those guys who you'll never hear talk about his, in detail about his former exploits, but he is truly an American hero. I had the honor and privilege of working within the same organization as him. He was legendary back then, and he's legendary now. Our country owes him a great deal of gratitude for his service and what he's done. So I just want to say that because, Troy's kind of a humble guy and he won't ever tell you himself, but coming from a guy who's actually been there, done that, and seen the stuff he's done and his sacrifices for our nation, he's owed a great deal of credit.
Brother, I love you, and I'm so proud to be your friend. So,
feelings very mutual, Troy.
Cool.
Well, I appreciate it, Lou, and best wishes, sir.
You got it, guys.
Go get some sleep. Go get some sleep. Go get some sleep. Man.
I'm going to. I need to say, can you see this face? I need some sleep.
I know. You're like, God, you texted me at 2:30 in the morning, like, I made it home. I'm like, geez, it's only about 4 hours.
I know. I'm sniffing. I'm getting over COVID. I feel terrible.
I've been sick too.
I'm sorry, guys. But I really
all right, brother.
All right,
thanks, sir.
Take care and God bless.
Bye, man.
God bless. Again, folks, Lou Elizondo, that's fantastic.
He's the best.
Absolutely fantastic. And I knew I liked you when I first met you, and you're like, hey, here's some whiskey I brewed myself. You want it with that cigar you're smoking over there? Yeah, I knew, okay, I like this guy already.
Well, and it's funny because I like sharing, good deed. It's just doing a good act, a random good act. And being nice to people yields so many wonderful things. And I think we've developed a great relationship. And Brian Dawson, all the people that I've met through the cigar shop, but the people like Lou, and there's other people I know that are truly at the forefront of trying to bring transparency. And I have a strong sneaking suspicion that under the Trump administration, Lou's going to be somewhere involved in some stuff that's going to be monumental on the releasing of stuff on drones and on UFOs. I believe that. I really believe that.
Here. Well, we got to hit this break. First, again, this part of the program brought to you by Josh and Leslie Ryder there at Dillon Rings. And at Dillon Rings, they're a full-service jewelry shop. So that could be, hey, you want to get some jewelry that you've owned, maybe you inherited it, you haven't thought of it in a while, but, inflation's happened. Yeah. So maybe it's time to get it reappraised. You could be sitting on something quite valuable and you don't even know it. Of course, they can also do repairs. Maybe your favorite bracelet or necklace or pendant broke. A stone came loose in a ring. They can, of course, repair that up. Could be it just doesn't shine and shimmer like it once did. Well, they can put your jewelry through a spa treatment, and then it'll shine and shimmer like it's brand new again. And, of course, they have an amazing selection there from high-end jewelry to everyday jewelry, and they do custom design work. And so if you're looking for customized, personalized to you, it could be you're combining two pieces of jewelry, updating piece, or it's something you had a dream about. Well, Josh Ryder's so good. He's such an artist. That man can make it a reality. So y'all check out Dillon Rings today. You can always go and check him out on Facebook or Instagram. But I encourage you to just stop by 119 Brown Springs Road right here in Montgomery, just off Atlanta Highway, sort of the back-end entrance of the AUM complex. And be sure to tell him that Joey, that guy on the radio, sent you.
Want to carry News Talk in your pocket? Download the News Talk 93.1 app from the App Store. Available on iPhone and Android. Never miss a moment. Download now.
Rich Thomas Weather, a service of H&H Carpets across from Walmart on the Atlanta Highway, where right now you can get 1,050 square feet of carpet installed for $19.95 only at H&H Carpets in Montgomery.
Rich Thomas Weather. Well, hi, everybody. We are still living the dream with spring life warmth in February. Tonight, partly cloudy and mild. Overnight low temperature down to about 55. We should be dry. Tomorrow, Wednesday, the record high is 82. I've got us 80 to 82, so we'll be in the neighborhood. Maybe some spotty showers around Thursday, Friday, possibly over the weekend with highs 80 or above each day. And again, that's record territory. Our amazing winter thaw continues. From the Blue Water Weather Center, this is Rich Thomas.
You can make your ASE loan payment from your phone anytime, anywhere. It's quick and easy. YourASECreditUnion.com. Federally insured by NCUA. Equal Opportunity Lender.
ASE Credit Union. Your life, your goals, your ASE.
For too long, Alabama's statewide news companies have shamed us for our conservative Christian values. Alabama deserves a news company that cherishes our culture, a company that isn't bought and paid for by the powers that be. 1819 News is that company. Run by Alabamians for Alabamians, 1819 News celebrates what is good and beautiful about our state, while exposing those who work against our values in secret. Just go to 1819news.com to learn more. Subscribe to our newsletter. That's 1819news.com.
Tucker Pecan is in a brand new location at 1935 Mulberry Street, but they've still got the same great products they had when they were downtown. Here's David Little to tell you more.
Hey, David Little at Tucker Pecan here. I tell you what, since we have moved, we've had great response. We have a lot of people coming by our new store on 1935 Mulberry Street, and it's a lot of fun. You know why? Because we're getting to add new items. We're adding new candies, new jellies, new jams. We even have a honey called Hot Pecan Butter. It's so good. We have a hot honey. We have a peach jam. We have a hemp jelly that is mangoes, pineapples, and jelly. It is so good. We've got all those things. Plus, we've got all the great candies we've had before. And, you know, we're in a very convenient location. You don't have to go to downtown. You come to Tucker Pecan at 1935 Mulberry Street. Come shop with us, and we'll take care of all your gift needs, candies, or if you're just hungry, come by, and we'll fix you up.
Don't you love the feeling of coming home to a clean house? Let Southern Bell's cleaning service get your home in order. Families in the River region trust Southern Bell's because they know Callan and Jesse will show up on time and believe in cleaning the old-fashioned way. They bring all their own supplies and specialize in full-service, residential, commercial, vacant properties, and construction cleanup. Estimates are always free. Call Southern Bells today at 546-0715 or follow them on Facebook at Southern Bells Cleaning River Region.
This hour of News and Views is brought to you by our good friends at Cole Plumbing, 279-8919. Cole Plumbing is number one in the number two business. You don't have to dig a hole. They have proprietary pipelining technology. Ask them about their tankless water heaters. Remember, when you have trouble with your bowl, call on Cole.
Live, local talk. The River Region's most trusted voice for news and opinion. News Talk 93.1 FM, WACV.
Joey Clark.
Welcome back to the program. Let's go right to the phones and talk to Ray Bowles from Prattville Carpet. Hey, Ray, how you doing today?
Man, I'm doing good. I was trying to step out back to do this ad with you guys because it feels so good. But you know what I just love? When somebody drives up next door. Now, if you've never been to Prattville Carpet, not really sure where I'm at, I've got a Murphy's gas station next door. Mm-hmm. And I just love listening to people's music when they're on the farthest pump away, and it sounds like they're sitting right beside me.
Yep.
I'm getting old.
I was waiting for the.
At least you didn't go over there and yell and get off your yard. I mean, you're not that old yet.
Yeah, I'm getting so old. I'm like, why? I don't want to hear it. Nobody else around here wants to hear this.
No, they're
if
cool,
it was
Ray.
Talk radio. That's what I need to do. Every time I drive up, naturally, my radio is always on 93.1. I'm going to crank that joker up as loud as I can. And get out.
There you go.
Well, I mean, I'm kind of with you, but I don't mind a good woofer. Like that bass that comes through the ground. Like that, there's nothing wrong with that. Kind of feels good.
The problem is my hearing's about gone because of what we did when we were kids.
How's your dad doing, Ray?
He's doing great. He's back at work.
Okay, good deal.
Good.
We know he had that fall. I was thinking about him.
Yeah, he's doing really good. I got to say, that week off about killed him.
Yeah, I bet it did.
Oh, I bet.
You know, I was thinking about that just the other day. Okay, so he literally falls down and busts 7 teeth and knocks himself out.
Mm-hmm.
Back at work the next day, we had to send him home. And then the next day he shows back up and he says, "I'm not going home. I can't do it." Then he passes out at church. That was that Sunday.
Oh, goodness.
Gets out of the hospital on Wednesday and was going to come back to work. And the only reason he didn't come back to work is because they tested positive for COVID. And he sweared it up and down. He didn't have it because he felt fine. Now, that is true grit.
Yep.
They don't make men like
No,
that.
they
do not.
They don't. Where do we find men like that?
Yeah. No, I tell you, if like I'm the world's worst. I like Angie's like you've been sick. Stay home. I'm like, no, I got to get back to work. I got to get back to work. My son-in-laws, Lord have mercy, they can take 3 months off and never hit a lick. Drives me insane.
Yep.
I'm like, how do you take off for 3 weeks? I can't wrap my brain around this scenario. But there's a reason you want to call Private Carpet, because every one of us in here are workaholics, and we're going to take care of you from the time you call us until the time we walk back out, except for Terry. Terry's not going to work that hard.
Sounds like Terry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's actually taking 2 weeks off to go on a cruise or something.
Oh, nice. That's real good right there. So the number's still 285-8117?
It is. And when you come by, ask to see Daddy sitting around here hiding from everybody, but he'll be glad to come out and talk to you.
Right there on Cobbsford Road, folks. And when you call him up at 285-8117, be sure to tell him you heard Ray Bowles here on the radio.
Hey, guys, have a great day.
You too, Ray. See you, bro.
Looks like David Sachs, he's the crypto czar there, just gave a big press conference on that. Trump also doing live comments from the Oval Office. He's doing it like every day.
Every day.
It is.
Yeah.
Which is fascinating. And
Kind
then
of opposite of what we've been used to for the last 4 years.
it's great. I mean, it's a TV show in a really good way.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here's another thing, because we watched it live when Trump signed the executive order to create a sovereign wealth fund. And you had Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary. You had Howard Lutnick, the Commerce Secretary. And Lutnick is really going to be the guy running the sovereign wealth fund established here in the United States. Well, Cynthia Lummis, who's a senator from Wyoming, was sharing this is very good news for her strategic reserve deal with Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, well, why is that? Why is that? Well, here's Howard Lutnick, not that long ago, being asked about Bitcoin. Again, this is the guy who's going to be running the sovereign wealth fund of the United States.
But like, how do you think about either you or Cantor?
I don't have a big enough percentage. I probably have, if... No, I can't say, because then people can figure out that no.
He was asked what's his net worth, how much Bitcoin is he on?
I have. I would say I have hundreds of millions of dollars.
Okay.
Hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars exposure to Bitcoin.
Wow.
And it will be billions.
I was going to say, so next year when you come back, and we'll do this again, and you'll be a Bitcoin billionaire. And
yeah, but you remember that model I told you? So if every time Bitcoin dips, I'm going to be the buyer.
Right, trust me, I know why you're doing the lending.
It's all coming. You're figuring it out.
Listen, you don't have to explain that one around here.
So I got the 50% Bitcoin, I got the Bitcoin lending, but basically what you're going to see is Cantor Fitzgerald is going to be the sponsor of Bitcoin into traditional finance.
Mm-hmm.
And so we will be the leader of it. And I'll pull out this podcast in years to come and say, see, I told you, because no one's going to remember.
Of course.
Right. But all the banks, after we do it, and show people how to do it right, they'll all copy.
Mm-hmm.
And so the asset of Bitcoin will just, as it becomes more accepted, it will become more valuable. And the whole Bitcoin nation should just call it a commodity, never a currency.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Just call it a commodity. Because if it's a currency, you're attacking the politicians of the country,
mm-hmm.
right? You're trying to replace my currency with yours.
Mm-hmm.
But if you say, hey, I'm just oil. I'm just gold.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just a commodity. Leave me be, right? Then they'll leave you be. And that is true. And it will be why Bitcoin, which is rare and is special, will become ever more rare, as we both know, ever more valuable over time. It'll be financed just like gold is, right? Gold is, it's not like super financeable, but it's financeable. Oil, it's not super financeable, but it's financeable, right? Bitcoin will be financeable. Bitcoin will be way, way, way higher, sometimes lower. You just have to have faith.
That's the guy he tapped to run the Sovereign Wealth Fund of the United States.
Smart guy.
It makes me very bullish. I'll put it that way. I love that. Again, so much happening all at once. It's kind of remarkable. And it's almost like everybody who's been on the bleeding edge of whatever field is looking at this new administration, whether you're talking UAPs and disclosures or you're talking Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, or it could be you want to make America healthy again with RFK Jr. It's pretty awesome to see just in 2 weeks how much has gotten done. Trump, I guess, said, can make deals to get animals out of U.S.
El Salvador.
Now, that's the one, we just ran out of time with Judge Napolitano at the beginning of the show. My last question to him is this deal made with El Salvador. Now, one part of the deal is for a fee, we'll take any nationality of illegal migrant.
Yep.
But Trump also wants to send U.S. citizens who have been convicted through due process, convicted of, say, life for heinous crimes, and send them there. Now, I don't know the legality of that. That's why I want to ask the judge. But maybe on the face of it, it doesn't sound legal. But I don't know.
This just in from Reuters. Trump says he has instructed his national security advisors to obliterate Iran if it assassinates him. It just came across my feed. I'm like, oh, God.
I have a kill switch.
Yep.
That's a heck of a kill switch. Usually people mean a lot of information will come out.
Kill us, we'll kill us.
Yeah. Wow. And he does seem in his element. It's the first day he was back, he seemed so comfortable in his own skin. They made a huge mistake. Giving him that 4 years off. They made a huge mistake.
And not only that, trying to the assassination attempt. He's a different person. He is
totally
just a different person.
Yeah. After that,
he's very, very statesman-like. It's beautiful.
But I mean, we're only just getting going. You got to wonder what's the next thing.
Like
what's
said,
the next shooting?
What's a big new shot? I think that you hit that on the nail. What's going to be that one thing that happens that we just don't
that nobody
know?
knows?
It's going to be like, wow.
Right. And then, but one thing I maybe could have brought up when we were talking to Lou is, did you see the Secretary General of NATO told Denmark, actually, y'all should negotiate to get the U.S. Greenland to make NATO strong. Yep. I'm like, so all this crazy stuff. And then, the Gulf of America. I know that drives some people nuts, but I wonder how the Floribama's doing with those T-shirts.
Oh, yeah, really. That's
making bank, baby. I guarantee
I know they are.
Oh, well, what a show. Thank you again, Troy, for setting that up with Lou.
Thank you for allowing me to bring him on.
And, let's get out of here because, later in the week, Eddie and I are going to do this straight on Thursday.
Yeah.
6 hours. Greg's going to be off.
Yep.
So we're going to do the stream for 6 hours straight.
Long stream.
Mm-hmm.
You want me to come in for a minute?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I'll come in.
Come on, stop by.
I'll come in and help you.
Yeah, we'll just get a whole cast of characters stopping by. It'll be a fun, especially as we get into the bat.
It's
3
almost
hours.
like the parents are gone. It's like, Daddy's gone. Daddy's gone. He's not
boy.
Home. Kids are going to run around.
Y'all stay tuned. Happy Hour with Greg Budell. He's next.
That's fun.
Broadcasting from the Riverside Chevrolet Master Control Center.